Welcome everyone to Through the Void Gate, a Warcaster podcast for new and experienced players. Deploying in 3.
Hello and welcome to episode 16 of Through the Void Gate. This is Justin, Dino on the Discord, joined by Sneaky Buffalo.
AKA Spencer.
And Jay from Charge and Spike. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, this is Jay. If you haven't listened to me before, I'm known by 24-Hour Gamer Geek or here on BH on Discord and around on Facebook. As he said, I'm one of the co-hosts of Charge and Spike with Luis. We've sort of been on hiatus recently, but we're prepping to get back to things. Both of us had a bunch of personal stuff happen, jobs get busy, health issue kind of stuff. But we're finally at a point where probably in May you'll start getting episodes from us again, if not before.
That's exciting to hear. Because you guys put out a lot of really good content too, and
Yep.
I mean, you guys in a lot of the ways, your Charge episodes are like the yin to our yang. Because
Yep.
we focus a lot on the rules and like the play, and then your Charge episodes kind of fill in that narrative and other part that people aren't getting from us. So
yeah, that's something that we definitely wanted to do was address the narrative side of play, because a lot of the other casts are sort of focused on competitive. And while Luis and I are players, and I'm probably the more competitive of the two of us, at least for Warcaster, we are definitely both narrative guys, and you guys are much better at quantifying the competitive stuff. We're going to talk about that kind of stuff. Like, one of the things we want to do is like overview the ciphers and talk about how we approach things as AC players, though I'm taking a break from AC. But overall, we want to talk about the narrative stuff because we feel that not enough people are doing that.
hey, and I'm hoping Kickstarter 3 changes that.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the narrative campaign.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like, I'm normally not one of those people that's excited for narrative stuff, but like, I am excited for this one. I genuinely am, because I think Warcaster lends itself better to that kind of play in general.
Yeah, and if you guys are looking for good narrative stuff, listeners, definitely check out Soul's articles that he's been putting out. The most recent March Worlds one completely defines who the March Worlds are, or at least their history of who they are and where they came from. You should definitely check that article out, because it made me relook at March Worlds and almost completely redesign my paint scheme and backstory for my army.
Okay, and then other things in the community is that War Budgies put out another episode recently. Yep. He finally put the Nemesis on the table. He's got a really cool map in that one where he's like inside a spaceship. If you're following his story at all, it's actually the inside of where they have that little Warcaster for his little narrative parts of it.
That's cool.
So, and it kind of does show off some of the strengths of like AC squads, because that's the kind of terrain where they can really shine, where they can move through the walls, and that ability is meaning.
Yep.
So give that a watch. He is going to be going on like a 2 or 3 week hiatus, and I think he's planning on bringing some collision stuff out whenever he comes back. So I'm excited for that.
I need to catch up. I'm a big fan of his. He's actually a local for me, and I'm about 3 episodes behind. I really need to find some time and catch up.
Well, it's really good. He does a really good job with them, and this one is actually just one of the normal skirmish missions from the main rulebook. So, but he adds a lot of flavor to it.
I really like the mission where you can teleport like to the mine area. That was really cool.
The double map mission was just a really cool idea.
I agree.
And then in the news, this whole episode is about the news, because Collision Force is finally making it out to people.
Woo!
International shipping's already happened, but somebody here in the U.S. already has it in their hands, and it didn't take very long. But we've got access to all the new scenarios that have come. So this episode is going to be an overview of all the new missions.
And we also got the ciphers last week in the update, so we will be fully up to date on everything shortly, which is exciting.
And pretty soon we're planning on doing some cipher episodes. We'll probably break it down into each type just to kind of reduce the length of the podcast. Because if we broke down all of them together, it'd probably be a 3-hour cast.
We should coordinate some, because that's actually something that we're doing with Uncharged and Spike.
Okay, we'll have to look into that. So, on to the missions for this one. We're going to start off with the primary missions. We'll do a brief explanation of kind of what they look like. It's kind of hard to translate that into podcast land, but I'll do my best. And then we'll give a brief talk about it. And then at the end, we're going to wrap up by saying some of our favorite missions and talking about some of our favorite, least favorite, how we would tweak some of the mechanics that are introduced in here, because there's a whole lot of new mechanics introduced.
Whole slew of stuff.
So the first mission that they introduced in the new book is called Cascading Failure. Basically, it's six objectives, kind of in a circle. I believe we have a primary mission that already has this set up.
It looks very similar to Orders of Magnitude. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might actually be just Orders of Magnitude. It is. I'm confirming right now. It is Orders of Magnitude setup. So you can get the visual yourself if you'd like to do that way. The objectives in this one are our terrain that provide cover. Only squads are allowed to score in this mission. But more special rules include each time a player scores an alien node an objective, roll an action die. If a roll results in no strikes, nothing happens. The roll results in one strike, roll a d6 on the minor destruction table. And if there's a super strike, roll a d6 on the catastrophic failure table.
Terror.
So anytime a squad ends an activation on any of these nodes, you're going to have something happen. And they can range from all kinds of craziness, from the objective just going away for the rest of the game to all those models being put on fire. For scoring,
or worse, everything costing more for the rest of the pulse round. That one is crazy.
So each player can score each objective once per pulse round, which means with 6 objectives and end of activation scoring, you could have these effects. Well, if you didn't roll blanks any times, you could have it up to 12 times happen. Well, no, up to 5 times because you only have 5 activations. 5 squad activations you can. And the objective is scored when a unit ends its activation, securing the objective. 1 victory point in the first pulse round, 2 victory points in the second pulse round, 3 victory points in the third pulse round. What do you guys think of this mission?
Yeah, well, just for some math real quick, it's whenever a player scores it, so it could happen potentially 10 times.
10 times, yeah. Because if both players are scoring it
Yeah, and then I think it's worth just making sure this is an end of activation scoring, because that's a big deal. Squad only end of activation scoring.
Squad only end of activation scoring, because we had one of those previously, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan because it really limits your what you can do, what models you can play with basically in order to stay relevant. So I don't like that. But other than that, the RNG aspect, it's not making it into a tournament, but it sounds really fun to play. It reminds me of the last scenario that was in the first Contact packet, and I like that one a lot. So
if they ever do a team format, I think this is going to be a great mission. I think it could be a blast having 4 people just sit around and play this mission. Or I don't know how they necessarily do teams, but it seems like the kind of mission that you'd want to sort of sit back and have fun with. It's not something that you're going to see in competitive play, I don't think, but just some of the craziness that can happen and how it can affect the rest of the game, I think would be really. I'm looking forward to trying this mission.
I completely agree. This one looks super fun. I don't think you can plan on anything in this mission except that you're going to need to summon squads every turn and activate squads every turn, which is kind of a bummer. But
it is. As an AC player, yes, it is.
So I'm looking at it. This is decay constant scoring with the map set up from Orders of Magnitude with a chart that can happen and add random effects.
Yep.
Like I say, I'm a fan of narrative. For competitive, we'll see. I'm excited to play the mission. I would be very sad if I got this mission on me in some local league or something. We were doing a tournament or something.
Great.
Yeah, this is my 100% not gonna play in a tournament other than Uncertainty Principle. This and Uncertainty Principle are both just cancel it in tournaments. Uncertainty Principle is just cancel it, period. But I will totally beer and pretzels this game.
You know what, Sneaky? I think you need to make just a funsy league one time where we just play all the very worst scenarios.
All the terrible scenarios.
That is, we only play the scenarios everybody unanimously agrees are bad.
You know what? That's a good idea. Except I'm still not.
I like it.
I'm still not putting uncertainty principle in that league because it's just not fun.
I guess that's fair, but still goes against the nature of the league. That brings us to the next mission, because you guys had no closing thoughts on that one, right?
Nope.
The next primary mission is called Cat and Mouse. It has the objectives are almost exactly the same as the K constant, so they're kind of in two staggered lines on each player's side of the map. The only difference is they're about 2 inches back from the K constant. No, 2 inches. The two on the sides are 2 inches forward, and the one in the middle is 2 inches back. So it's not quite as staggered, but it's still like a curve.
Yeah, they're a little bit closer together than to K.
A little bit closer or further from deployment zones.
Yeah, but closer.
So 6 objectives labeled 1, 2, 3. They are considered to be terrain features that provide cover. They're called gate nodes, and that's because they can teleport you across the map. So it reads, at the end of each player's turn, that player can choose to have one of their units within 3 inches of a gate node objective, which is all the objectives. So within 3 inches of a gate node objective they secure, to the corresponding gate node objective with the same number on the other side of the table. So the numbers are complete as far away as you can be from them. The corner ones, those are the 2s, and then the opposite side, the 1s. And then the center are both 3s, so you can teleport to the same number objective.
So right corner to left corner to right corner, center to each other.
Yeah. So then when you teleport to one of these objectives, you just reposition whatever you teleported within 2 inches of the corresponding gate node objective. Now, it's very important it says reposition, which means that you could get on objectives with that. Mm-hmm. Scoring for this mission is at the end of each pulse round, you score for each gate node objective, and only squads can score. So it's end of pulse round scoring, only squad scoring based on the pulse round number. So first pulse round, they're all worth 1. Second pulse round, worth 2. Third pulse round, worth 3. What do you guys think?
I think that this is going to be a super fun scenario because everyone knows I really like how dynamic Warcaster is. And with this stuff just teleporting all over the board, I think it's going to be super fun. I am very worried about second player advantage as far as from a competitive balance standpoint. I think it's worth testing, but I really want to play this scenario.
So with squad scoring, and I'm going to keep saying this as the most recent AC, it's super disadvantageous for AC. I also think it's going to be tough for you to you're either going to have to leave the objectives wide open or you're going to have to completely hide them from each other. And it's going to be tough to do with how close the objectives on each back line are to each other. I think this mission is going to be tough to play. This is one of those scenarios where I think it's going to be very narrative. It could have some ability if we find a good map for maybe with like something in the center, like along the line of the center that's really tall, where the center objectives are that split the other two. But I don't know. I think that this could be a really tough mission to balance well.
I agree. I kind of agree with both of you. I think that I love and hate the teleport mechanic as it is. I think it pushes that second turn advantage to another level. Mm-hmm. I personally don't super care about squad scoring, but I think this one actually could be really cool as like a narrative mission. Like one thing I think might be really cool is if you had just there used to be a War Machine scenario where you had like a hill and you couldn't see past the center line of the mission without being on it, mm-hmm. without cresting the hill. I think if you had some sort of rule like that where it made the teleporters like more necessary, it could be a really cool kind of narrative mission. Like, you know, it would almost be like two people like teleporting onto each other's ship or something.
I think it'd be really cool if there was like a curtain wall or like a gate wall that separated the table down the center line in the middle, down the two center objectives, and like the center objectives were sitting in towers or on top of higher points on the wall, and there was like a gate so you could go through it in the center on the ground. But the teleports, because that way you would teleport to the opposite corners, and you could teleport across the gate.
Right. Like I think there's
think I
a
might
lot of
build that.
really cool narrative abilities for this. I'm skeptical of its competitive viability.
Yeah.
But I think narratively you could do some things with this and make it really cool and fun and engaging.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited for that. And I cannot wait till I don't know if Warbudgies ever wants to get on the full size maps, but I think he could have a lot of fun with this.
Agreed.
Yeah. With y'all talking about like cutting the board in half, I do like the wall idea. That'd be really cool. But like just cutting it straight in half, you just put a linear obscuring terrain across the whole board. That way,
6 inches or something like that across.
No.
I mean, you could even make it just an impassable piece of terrain. Like.
Yeah.
I know that technically, by the rules, there isn't like an actual impassable piece of terrain.
Yeah.
But I mean, you do whatever you want, right? Like whatever's most fun for you and do when you're playing a narrative kind of mission, right?
Well, I was gonna say a line of obscuring terrain because then that completely blocks line of sight.
Yeah.
I guess y'all are talking movement, so I mean, yeah, there's options.
I think there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this scenario. It's hard to do that in a competitive format. And it's even harder to do that in a competitive format and make it feel fair. But
Agreed.
I want to love this scenario. I want to. I wish reposition was changed with redeploy, and I would actually be like on the verge of being okay with it for competitive. But otherwise, I think it's a really cool mission.
I have some ideas. I
think that one wording change would make it competitive.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it's close enough. I think it's close enough. Any other closing thoughts about that mission?
I want to play it. That's it.
Yep.
Hey, I want to play all of these.
All.
When on my days off, I'm gonna be looking for games. So get on the Discord, people. Look for me after 10 o'clock EST.
Oh, are you gonna actually make maps now?
I was waiting for you to make the maps, man.
I've been pushing him to make maps.
You're my map maker.
I got you new stuff today. I got you new forests. I got you new clouds.
You saw me trying to make a map. It was bad.
I'll walk you through it. It's not that hard.
He was trying to like sink stuff into the table and whatnot. Like he's just getting way too fancy over here.
I know. I try. That's the way I do it with coding. Anytime like I try and do anything semi-technical, I think I found this new way to like re-engineer the game, and then I find out it's just the least efficient way to do it. It's terrible. It's terrible. So we're good on cat and mouse?
Yeah.
Yep.
The next primary mission is Enigma's Gate. Now this one, you'll look at it, it'll blow your damn mind. Because there are 9 objectives on the map. 9 objectives. I personally, the other day, somebody made a homebrew map that had more than 6, and I was like, PP's never going to make a mission with more than 6 because you only get 6 in the starter box. Well, I'm looking like a real big dummy right now because they have 2 in this packet that I believe have more than 6.
Yep, there's a 9 and a 7.
Yeah, so 9 objectives. So the first 3 objectives spanning the middle of the table are control stations. So the first 3 are normal objectives. The remaining 1 through 6 are relay points. The objectives should be centered on the points described. Permanent objectives are considered to be terrain features that provide cover. So there are 9 points of cover just based on the map, which is insanity to me.
3 of them are super close to each other.
Yeah,
3 in the center are super close.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on top of each other basically.
Special rules: squads and vehicles secure the objectives. Relay point objectives, which are all the other ones except the ones in the center, are inactive at the start of the game. These objectives cannot be secured when inactive. Each time a player scores an objective, which would be the one in the 3 in the middle, actually it just says each player scores an objective.
Yep.
That means that once you score one of the other relay ones, you unlock another one. Oh god. So each time a player scores an objective, that player rolls a d6 to determine which relay point objective becomes active. At the end of each pulse round, all relay point objectives become inactive. So, quick rundown. Start of the game, there's 3 objectives right in the middle that are active. Somebody goes up and scores one of those. They roll a d6. Any of the other 6 objectives, depending on what you roll, can become active.
And
then, if somebody scores...
It's important to note that 1, 2, and 3 are on one side of the board, and 4, 5, and 6 are on the other.
Yeah. So then what happens is if anybody scores that new objective, the objective that was already scored by somebody, or any of the other ones that haven't been scored, any of the other two that haven't been scored, another one gets rolled, and you re-roll duplicates, I do believe.
Yes.
Actually, it doesn't say that. It says each time a player scores an objective, that player rolls a d6 to determine which relay point objective is active. It doesn't say anything about re-rolling. So if you roll one that's already active, I guess it just, nothing happens. They don't actually say, don't re-roll or to re-roll. So I don't know what their intent is there. Then says each player can only score each objective once per pulse round, and objectives are scored when a unit ends its activation while securing the objective. 1 victory point for objectives during the first pulse round, 2 for the second pulse round, 3 for the third pulse round. So it's end of activation scoring with randomly active scenario or objectives besides the 3 in the middle, and only squads and vehicles can. What do you guys think?
So the first time I read this mission, I read it wrong, and I thought it was the 3 in the middle got activated as you went, so that there were 6 that were active all the time. And while preparing for this episode, I reread it and saw that was different. I think that this mission is super tough, and it only gets tougher as the game goes on, because the more models each player has on the table and the more they are in different locations, if you score an objective, you're very likely going to activate an objective where your opponent could be. And so as the game goes on, there's more models on the table. Scoring an objective at all could give your opponent the same number of points as you just got, but then they could give it back to you. So I think it's a really tough scenario to plan around or play.
Yeah, the thing you just mentioned, once again, just gives a little minor second turn advantage. And then it's so one other thing I don't like about this scenario is it's end of activation, squad scoring, but there's also vehicles thrown in there. So I do like that there's multiple unit types. My issue with it being vehicles is that this is the only scenario in the game, I believe, that maybe one of the other ones. Yeah, there's one more.
There's one more
that makes you want to take vehicles, and those are the most expensive models in the game. It's like I'm not a big fan of stuff that disenfranchises players because they don't want to buy the most expensive models, especially when vehicles aren't used a lot in other situations. And then also there's the whole RNG aspect. So I think it could be fun, but I wouldn't want to see it in a tournament for multiple reasons. And yeah, overall, I'm just not a big fan of this scenario.
I think this scenario can be cool. It can be fun. I'm doing some quick math, though. There's 3 points in the middle. Like, we were talking about how close they are. So can a squad score 2 of those in one activation?
If you aren't putting...
They're
if you aren't
8 inches apart from each other.
Yeah,
right?
if you're not
separating
those, if you're not separating those with buildings or something, then that's a big mistake.
Well, I mean, they're 7 inches. They're less than 7 inches apart of scoring area.
Yeah, but if you put say the center one on top of a building,
yeah, I can see that.
Then squads won't be able to. Or if you put 2 and 5 on top of a building and leave the center one on the ground, you can't multi-score with a squad. So. Yeah.
Well, one thing I think is really interesting about this scenario is I think it demands the most of somebody making a map for it, because you have these 9 objectives that are terrain and cover, and depending on how you and your meta does that, I know in the online leagues we make it to where you cannot stand on them, and they're basically treated kind of like a low wall. That's a lot of the map you really can't go onto, really. So this being a vehicle scenario is also kind of weird, because you're wanting to put like that building in the middle. But then that building, depending on how big it is, you're closing off parts of different objectives. And with vehicles being a big part of how you're scoring in this, it's a little scary.
Yeah, I think for this scenario, honestly, I just put one small building in the very center to separate 2, 5 and the center objective. And then just a bunch of scatter, and then probably some obscuring terrain, because that's not going to mess with the vehicle movement, but it is going to block line of sight. So I think that's the play there. This is not going to be like a dense terrain board with like lots of obstructions and buildings. I don't know. I don't know how you could make that work.
I could see 3 buildings across the center on the 3 objectives that are active all the time, and
Yeah,
then
I could see that.
obscuring
I can
and
see that.
scatter
That'd probably be fine.
on either side.
Yeah, I think this one's gonna be wild. I'm gonna call this one Warcaster Whack-a-Mole, because you go and hit this point, but then this point pops up. So you need to go hit that point, but then this point pops up. But it's like you're gonna be all over the map. This one's gonna be nutty, and it's gonna be random, and it's a more fun scenario, I think. And the scores are gonna be outrageous, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, depending on how you roll. So like if one pulse round 1, 2, and 3 all get rolled like right away, whoever's on that side of the table is at a super high advantage, unless in a previous pulse round their opponent got a bunch of stuff on that side of the table. It really is going to reward you for having stuff in like every quadrant, so that you can respond to multiple things.
This is one you definitely want to spread out for.
Yeah,
and I think it rewards that kind, like, because that kind of play is kind of what I feel like Warcaster is all about, right? You want models in every part of the board that's scenario relevant, and this mission makes every part of the board scenario relevant.
True.
So you want your stuff everywhere, and I think it's a good thing. But I am terrified to actually play this mission. This mission just seems like there's just so much going on at all times. It's like, well, do I really want to score that? Because if I open that up, then he can get like imagine if you're that person. It's pulse round, or you're going first, pulse round 5 of the third turn, right? And you're like, well, I need this thing to score to win, but if I score this, then it unlocks that, or it could unlock that, which could just lose me the game anyway. Like there's a whole lot of stress to scoring any of these zones. It's like, am I just gonna shoot myself in the foot here? But I guess your opponent's also going through that hierarchy of problems the whole time too. So
and there's a whole nother whack-a-mole scenario coming up too.
Oh,
that one's even. So this one's crazier, but that one is also very crazy.
I'm gonna go ahead and apologize to the guy on the Discord with his homebrew scenario. I was wrong. I was wrong.
So the one thing I'll say about that one is his scenario, everything is very bunched at the center of the table, and everything is really close together. This one, I like that it's more spread out. As we have said, there are 3 objectives that are bunched at the center, but at least 2 of them you have to activate as the pulse round goes on.
Yeah, my whole thing is, I think the other one with the 7 objectives, it's very bunched up, but we'll get there. So any final thoughts on Enigma's Gate?
I think we covered everything I have concerns with.
Okay. So we have escape velocity. Now, in my opinion, this is the most narrative of narrative scenarios, and we'll get to why. So the setup for the mission is basically just like decay constant, but flipped sideways. Right? Is that accurate?
That seems accurate.
Yep. It's very much like that. There's a couple inches different, but the look of the map is basically decay constant sideways. So the setup, place 6 permanent objectives onto the battlefield as indicated on the map. 4 permanent objectives in the corners of the table are gate nodes. The 2 permanent objectives in the center of the table are escape hatches. The gate node objectives are considered to be terrain features and provide cover. The escape hatch objectives are not considered to be terrain features and do not provide cover. Special rules. Only squads and vehicles can secure objectives. Players compete to evacuate as many escapees as possible from an underground base. When a vehicle or squad ends its activation securing an escape hatch objective, place an escapee portable objective in play next to a model in the securing unit. That model is considered to be securing the escapee portable objective. Only vehicles and squads can secure evacuee portable objectives, and each unit can only secure 1 evacuee portable objective at a time. When a model securing an escapee portable objective ends its activation securing a gate node objective, which are the ones in the corners, the escapee is rescued and the escapees from the battlefield and escapes from the battlefield through the gate. Remove all that escapee portable objective from the table. Remove that escapee portable objective from the table. Scoring. Players score victory points at the end of each pulse round for each gate node objective they secure. So 1 victory point for first pulse round, 2 for second pulse round, 3 for third pulse round. Additionally, each time a player succeeds in rescuing an escapee, the player gains 3 victory points. What do you guys think?
So this mission reminds me a lot of that first contact mission that has the 3 points that you grab stuff off the center. and then has
Yeah.
1 point on the back. I think it's a more balanced version of that mission. I definitely think it's a very narrative mission. I don't think it would work that well. I mean, so if you wanted to look at it competitively, from playing that First Contact mission a couple of times, usually you're going to score that objective pulling something and taking it back to gate like 1 time in a full size. So in this mission, you might be able to do it twice, 3 times if you really plan it out. But because you have to end its activation securing to pick the thing up, you either have to be able to reactivate it or do it in the next pulse round. And that means you're going to have several turns, most likely, before you, in a full-size game, before you're able to move unless you have a reactivation call. So it's going to take a lot of foreplanning to make this mission work. So, and also you're really only scoring in those 4 corners. You're not scoring the 2 missions across the center of the table. So you're going to have pockets of fighting effect.
Yeah, so like I just did a math. So the objectives are 17 inches away from each other. So technically, I believe if there's nothing obstructing in the way, then a interceptor might be able to make it. 17 to 16. Nope, no, it can't, because that's 14. So yeah, so nothing is going to be able to make it between the 2 points and 1 activation.
A Nemesis flying at triple speed can do it. That's it.
Yeah, but it can't carry stuff, unlike on Bones of Giants, which was ridiculous.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the Nemesis was the only thing that I ever saw score.
I had light vehicles
Giants.
do it in 1 game.
Yeah.
I had a sight.
Yeah, and the other thing is like, so a big difference between this and Bones is that on Bones, the drop-off locations didn't give you any points, whereas on this one, the pickup locations don't give you points. So like you might be picking up more objectives, but like everyone's going to be fighting over those drop-off locations, and you have to end securing in order to score the extra points. So what I think is probably going to wind up happening is like people are going to go in the middle, score some point, or grab a portable and bring it back closer, like later on in the game.
Yep.
And then that thing is going to die. It's going to drop the objective, and then someone's going to run up, grab it, and score it later on. Like that's the only time I see someone actually scoring it. Like I want these pick up and bring back things to work and be viable. But just from playing Bones and then also looking at this map, it just doesn't feel viable. You know what I mean? With the way that the activation tokens work. So yeah, not excited for this scenario personally.
The thing you have to be careful with these missions too, and that my opponent didn't realize the first time I played Bones with him, is that it's not that I have 2 on my side and you have 2 on your side. It's that you can score at any of them. Mm-hmm. So if he takes something over to his side and I kill it before it gets there, and then I can pick it up and go score it, that's a really big disadvantage for him. So you got to make sure if you are playing this mission, you watch out for that.
Yeah. Especially if there's something like an infiltrator squad that can like just zoom. Like it moves up, attacks you.
Yep.
Or like let's say it gets a displacement index up, attacks you, and then one of the squaddies jumps back 3 inches, and then the rest of them finish off the thing, and then picks it up, and then zooms all the way across the table, like, and then spikes.
Yep.
They can go anywhere.
Absolutely.
Infiltrators are dumb.
I'm looking forward to getting to play with them.
Oh, we're jumping ship to Marcher World? That's what's happening?
Yep.
Okay.
I am moved to Marcher Worlds. Painting new faction until Wave 3 of the Chaos, and then I'll probably go back to AC.
This one's kind of interesting because I think when I try this one for the first time, I'm not even going to go for the escape hatch. I think the escape hatch is a trap. Because they can't even turn in the portable objective if you're scoring the other's objectives, right? Mm-hmm. So there's also this weird thing. Sneaky, I think they're actually only 15 inches, 15.2, because they're 14 inches apart. Oh wait, no, I did my math wrong. I did the 10 inches up. Never mind. You're right. You're 17 is right. So let's see here. A vehicle, the vehicle can be. I think a vehicle could just go from 1 to scoring in 1 turn.
Mm-mm. The fastest vehicle is the Interceptor, and it moves 14.
Right, but it's base can be 3
Oh,
inches
yeah.
off of it, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it could, depending
And
on
then
where
you
it's
don't have
placed.
to get within. You just have to get within an inch of the other one. So you're
A-
saying they're
a
17
scythe could do it
apart,
with it
but it's
with-
more like 15. But it's more
Yeah.
like 12.
A scythe could do it with
That's true.
with its reposition.
So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. So I think a scythe and the interceptor could do it. Do the regular Empyrean vehicles have the activation removal one? Like, is that a
Yeah.
normal one, or is that just Nyx?
Yeah, they have it.
So I see them actually kind of being semi-valuable on this mission.
And the Zenith actually survives, unlike the other two that we did mention so far.
The Zenith does not survive any better than the Scythe. Except that the Scythe
crazy,
hurts
'cause the
itself.
Scythe hurts itself.
Unless it has the shield. Yeah.
Right. But then you're
When
sacrificing
doesn't
a
it?
good weapon for it's not a bad weapon, but it's
Yeah.
you're not going to blow up the world with it.
I've
Whereas
seen a
he could
Scythe.
have a Nova
I've
cannon.
seen a Zenith once that wasn't arm 5. Once.
I mean, if I was running a base Zenith, I'd probably run Nova Cannon over the shield. But Nyx, 100% shield all day,
Yeah.
every day.
So I think this one's really interesting. This one's I don't know how relevant the portable objectives thing ends up being, and I think the first person to really make a strategy around that is the one that probably loses the scenario. Is kind of the sad part about it, is because like what happens is the first person that goes for that, the other person attacks your objectives, so then you have nowhere to take your portable to, and then they kill your guy that pick up the portable, and then bring it back.
I think if you were able to pick it up in like turn 5 of a pulse round and then score it by turn 1 with a fast vehicle in the next pulse round, I think that's possible, but that might be the only time.
But I mean,
Yeah,
here's the thing.
but
But they're going to let your vehicle live,
Yeah,
or not
that's
contest
the
that
problem.
point,
That's the problem.
and you
Well,
really
yeah.
have to show that you're going to be going to that point, right? Like, I'm
Well, then-
positioning right here specifically so that I'm exactly 12 inches. We agree to that point, right? 12 inches to that scoring zone, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is that's also assuming that there are no terrain or other models in the way. Like if any of these zones are on top of a building, cancel it. If there's terrain,
I mean, they all fly. So why is terrain a problem? Unless you have to end on where it is.
well, unless it's a really, really big building to where there's enough space for the objectives to be on the center, plus a 1-inch ring, plus another 3.15 inches past the edge of that ring. I mean, you're looking at what, a 10-inch building? Like, it'd be nutty.
It'd be a pretty big building, depending on how your meta plays overhang, right? Like, because in the online league, we allow half the model to overhang, so you actually only have to worry about like 1.8 outside the ring.
Yeah, and then that there's nothing, roughly 10 inches. There's no piece of terrain roughly 10 inches in between the points, because then you're not going to be able to put your base down.
Yeah.
Well, the site
doesn't have that
care
problem.
about that. The site doesn't have that problem. The other vehicles have that problem, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I see this one being it's. I bet somebody will find some masterful way to score those portable objectives without getting screwed over for it. But I'm not going to be the one. I'm going to be trying to hit those gates. And so, like, this mission that could be really cool narratively, and I love what they're doing with this mission. I don't think it's going to play the way that people want it to.
Yeah.
Especially because you have to end your activation on those escape hatches. Like, picking up a portable objective being an end of activation thing, I thought was a pull.
Yeah, that changes the dynamic a lot. And
Right, because otherwise I could
you
just
can't grab it
position close, swoop
towards.
over and grab it and come out, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm stuck there. You can see where I have to sit in order to pick up an escapee.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I'm not sure it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obvious that they've designed it with the intention that scoring these things is a multi-turn process. So it's just not worth it most of the time. It's just a lot of investment.
And well, I mean, even dropping off the objectives, it's an end of activation thing also. Like, oh god. So like, I don't know. I just foresee pain. One thing I thought was kind of interesting though is that you can place the portable objective on whichever squad member you want.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was actually a cool touch.
Yeah.
So you could hide a squad member, kind of. So.
All right. On to a scenario I'm actually excited about.
Oh, ouch. Actually, I'm excited about this one too. So, the next scenario, unless you had something else to add on the other one, Jay.
Nope, I'm good.
The next scenario is 7 objectives. It's called the First Patrol. Listen carefully because this one's rules will warp your mind. Place 7 permanent objectives, strategic locations on the battlefield as indicated by the map. They're just in a big circle with one right in the dead center.
Line of 2,
Yeah,
3 across the middle, line of 2.
Yeah, it's a hexagon with a center.
Yep.
Yeah. They are all not considered terrain and do not provide cover. Special rules for the mission. Only squads can secure objectives during the first pulse round. Any unit can secure objectives during the second pulse round. Only vehicles and warjack can secure objectives during the third pulse round. Which, by the way, I'm super stoked for this. I think that is super cool.
That would be crazy if that was it. But
that would be crazy. Although I foresee this one kind of being kind of like a minimal kind of thing, and we'll go into that. Yeah. Players can only deploy solos and squads until both players have scored a combined 10 victory points or more. After players score a combined total of 10 or more victory points, they can deploy any units from their force as normal. So we'll get into the scoring, but this is why I don't feel like that is as big a thing as people might think. Each player can only score each objective once per pulse round, and strategic location objectives are scored when a unit ends their activation while securing the objective. 1 victory point is scored for objectives closest to the player's starting battlefield edge, which there are 2. 2 victory points are scored for the objectives in the center of the table, which there are 3. And 3 victory points are scored for objectives closest to their opponent's side of the battlefield. So this is an end of activation scoring that scores more for how far on your opponent's side of the board you get. So what do you guys think?
I'm super excited. Even though this disproportionately hurts me because I don't get my Nick shenanigans, so I'm very sad. And
Boo-hoo, Mr. I can reactivate squads forever.
And it's an activation, so I don't get my Fulcrum shenanigans. But
you do. You just activate the Fulcrum first, and then you do your squad.
Yeah. I just still have to activate squads. But
you still have to activate your squad. That's the thing.
Yeah, I just really like the differential scoring as in the different pulse rounds. It just sounds like it's going to be super fun. And yeah. Like it just totally changes the game. I'm super excited for the play. And it actually seems to be like a very balanced scenario, which makes me very happy.
Yeah. So I like the mission overall. I think that I really like the pulse round scoring. I really like that aspect, and I hope they do that more in the future. I am a little worried because it effectively puts AC on a back foot again because their squads are so fragile. Yes, they'll be farther apart. Yes, you can actually play with some stealth maybe in the first pulse round, which could be interesting. But I am worried about trying to get to the center, which is really where you're going to get scoring. I'm also worried that with the Cypher card for ISA kind of has a little bit of advantage over everybody else because they can sort of get additional squads out more quickly and get them to the center of the table a little faster. So I think ISA probably has the best chance of getting up in points early, except for the Fulcrum play, which you just mentioned, which I hadn't thought of.
I think Marshall World has the best chance, actually, because what happens is they all have slip displacer on all their squads.
Right, but they'll be deploying as normal, so you'll have a squad that will be able to score if you have the Cypher card, displacement index on turn 1 or turn 2. You might be able to get them out, but you're not going to see another squad on the table until turn 3. I mean, you might have to start with 2 squads. I don't know if that's a good tactic, but because you won't be able to start with a solo as well. So maybe a squad with an attachment.
You just don't have an attachment.
I mean, you could do 2 squads in a solo, but
they care the least about the attachments.
Yeah.
I think their attachment is just gravy. Like, if he had 2 wounds, I could see a reason that you actually care about having him, but he's a 1 wound guy that just lets them charge for free. Like, you probably don't care.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Marshall Worlds and I got Displacement Index on my hand, I would start 2 squads, each on one side of the board, and then a solo, who cares where. And then depending on how my opponent deploys, especially if I'm going second and I see them move first, my squad just zooms across the table, scores the far side middle point, and then you toss out a void gate going towards your opponent's point. Then you're pressuring that 3-point zone. Turn 2. Turn 2, you're pressuring a 3-point zone. Like, that's crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, and what's more is, like, I think this is a scenario where when you're the Marchers player, you play the Hunter first turn, and he just gets that extra movement, puts a gate out in, like, that weird middle area. And then you're threatening all 3 of the middle points. Like, they've got... Marcher Worlds is just spoiled for choice on this one. I think this one is a Marcher scenario. I think it's... Because when you have just that much movement in a scenario where you need to get on the far side of a 48-inch board, I mean, it's the army that's the fastest gets the win, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and they happen to be the fastest and the most lethal.
I still worry about ISA with the...
Yeah, the well's going to be pretty key.
I think ISA
can do
well, though, because otherwise they don't have any movement shenanigans.
Yeah, Empyreans can do shenanigans with fulcrums and multi-activating squads because we don't have to worry about activation tokens. So, I think, so AC.
AC can zip across the table, but they'll die to a stiff breeze if you're able to get in range of them, or if you are shooting them with annihilators, or re-rolling. I mean, the only way they're going to survive is if they have stealth, but they're not going to have stealth because they need to spend it to get the extra movement. So,
well, I mean, AC, you're not getting any extra movement out of that spike.
Well, you are if you do it in the dog moves, and then you move the dog an extra 6 inches, and you place them in front. You absolutely get extra movement.
I had not. Yeah, you are correct. Yeah, it's a weird one. I love this scenario. And you know what? It's funny. We're talking so much about the squads, but then the squads matter. They're everything first pulse round.
Yep.
And then second pulse round, they're important, but you don't need squads to activate and score things. You can score things with your Strike Raptor again, right? And then third pulse round, just your vehicles and Warjack score. I love how this one has a progression that flips on its head very quickly. Yeah. And I think coming up to that second part of it where you need 10 victory points scored before you can start summoning something other than squads, I think that number is going to come up a lot faster than
because I'm thinking like turn 3 on average.
Yeah, I think turn 3 is it'll happen a lot of the times pulse round 3. Or not pulse round 3. Turn 3 of pulse round 1.
Maybe
turn 4.
Yeah, aggressively tactically minded. I think turn 3 is an optimal thought. For some, if one of the players isn't like trying to zip to the center, I think it could be turn 4, but definitely not turn 5.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, you're looking at probably minimum turn 3 because turn 1 you can easily get 4 points without really doing anything. No, because you can only score right? 1. Most guys will get 2. Yeah, and
they'll get to 4 probably on turn 1, and then if you only have two choices out, or you have another choice out, and you can move, you probably get to 6, maybe 7. Turn 2, which will be turn 3, you'll get to 10.
Probably.
Because turn 3 is when stuff that has come out of the spawn gates will actually be able to affect the back lines.
Yeah. So
the crazy thing is this kind of like messes with the way that normal FPF goes, because usually you're spending those first 3 turns just trying to build up your forces, whereas this one, like, you're gonna have to really you can't like, you're only throwing out squads because that's all you got.
Squads and solos.
And if you miss a step, or your opponent focuses on something and forces you to be behind a round and getting stuff out to score for the next pulse round, I think that's going to be huge as well.
Yeah. I think that could be. I think this is probably one of the best design missions I've seen in a while.
I'll agree.
I love that it puts different value on different units, because that's one thing that I think all of us have classically been upset about with different scenarios, is just where, only my squads are important this whole game. Yep. Well, I don't really care for my squads. This or my Jack Jacks just ruin the game because they score everything all the time and they're optimal activations. You know, like there's both sides to that argument, and I think this mission does the service of like, hey, you know, it kind of evens out that, you know, squads have their time in the sun, vehicles and Jacks have their time in the sun, and everybody has their time in the sun. So I think that is it's a master class move on Privateer Press' part, making this scenario. I think this one, watch, I'll play the scenario and absolutely hate it. I'll be like, this is dog shit. But you know, but like for now, looking at it without having played it, I love what they're doing with this.
Yeah, I agree.
Any final thoughts on first?
I'm good.
I'm going to take that as a no. So, Necropolis Dreaming is the last primary mission that we're going to talk about. It has 6 objectives. It is, yet again, it's kind of that decay constant look. Except if you had decay constant take those middle points and like almost kiss, that's what's going on here. Those middle points are 8 inches apart. So,
to the centers of them. So they're even
even
closer.
Like it is crazy to me that they would put objectives that close.
Agreed.
I think there's only one mission that has them even close to that, and that's Uncertainty Principle, and we don't talk about Uncertainty. So 6 permanent objectives that are data stores on the battlefield indicated on the map, centered on the points described. These objectives should be numbered 1 to 6 as shown on the map. Objectives should be centered on the points described. Data store objectives are not considered to be terrain features and do not provide cover. Special rules for the mission. Any unit can secure data store permanent objectives. At the start of each pulse round, each player rolls a d6 to determine which data store permanent objectives are active. So there's going to be 2 active, and they're definitely going to be 2 different ones because it says reroll if rolls result in the same data store objective being active. Place a token on each active data store permanent objective. At the start of each subsequent pulse round, remove these tokens and roll for new active objectives. Scoring. Only active objectives can be secured. An active objective is scored when a unit ends its activation while securing the objective. A player can score each objective only once per pulse round, and a player scoring an active objective scores 3 points. When a player scores an active objective, the player rolls a d6 to determine which objective becomes active. Place a token next to the objective. If the same objective was just scored, is rolled, or if the other active objective is rolled, re-roll the result. Once active, objectives remain active until the end of the current pulse round. So just a quick thing, 2 of them will always be active. As soon as one is scored, you roll for a new one. If it's the one that was just scored or one that is currently active, re-roll it. They are always, always, always worth 3 points. Anytime you score these, always worth 3 points. What do you guys think?
This is another one of those dangerous missions and it's going to be from right from the get-go in the first pulse round because it's 3 all the time. It's one of those missions where I score this and I possibly give my opponent 3 points immediately, but then they score that and they give it back to me. And I think that as the game goes on, if someone gets the advantage early, it could be really tough to want to score points and keep going.
Yeah, the crazy thing is so this one's almost as bad as Uncertainty Principle because it could be literally before you even start the game.
Yep.
You could hate yourself because say your bottom player, where 3 and 4 are, and your opponent rolls a 1 and your d6 rolls a 2. Well, you just gave your opponent 3 points or 6 points. Turn 1.
Yep. And if you score 1 and 5 is rolled,
score those. The scary thing is if they decide not to score them right away, right? Because they can kind of camp those, and then you have nothing to score for 2 turns.
Yep.
Right. And then
unless you're a Marcher player, and then you can just launch a squad across the table and be like, ha ha.
Yeah, and then they just move their forces up the board, preparing. Yep. They just leave 2 solos chilling in the back line, and then they just move their stuff forward and set themselves up to score other stuff. And then they score those 2 solos, and then if 5 or 6 pops up, then boom, they've got a squad right there ready to jump on it.
Yeah. Second player advantage is huge in this because if they go second and both objectives are on their side, they can wait and score. If they prep their army right, they can wait and score those 2 objectives at the bottom of turn 5 and pulse round 1, and then they immediately the other ones that pop up immediately go away, and you have to roll new objectives.
If you go 5 turns and don't pressure your opponent's objective to make them have to score it at some point, that is a failure on your part. Like, I don't.
Yeah. Especially if you don't have anything to score, like you might as well just zoom across the board.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
if
so
you're running into a Sentinel or Nyx with a bunch of with gates open, or Fiddler and Co. being able to reactivate. I mean, if they have the reactivation card in their hand, there's a lot of stuff that can just delay or annihilate gates or anything that comes to that side.
That's true.
I can see that point. I can see like Marcher World just sitting back there with a fully charged Strike Raptor, just like, I'm not going to activate anything this turn.
That would be hilarious, but
and
that's
then you put
super scary.
Then you put something up, and it's like body count.
Yep. Absolutely.
They just created just a wall of stuff in front of those 2 points.
Oh my god.
Like this is worst case scenario. Like I think the actual math odds of that are super low, but like just it could be really bad. Even if it's like 1 in 5, right? You're already still in a bad spot.
I mean, this is one of those situations where you have the super nemesis come up and score 5 turn 1 and be like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I mean this is just like dumb math off the top of my head, but there's like 3 things you could roll that would put you into a bad spot turn 1. So I'm just gonna say it's a 50-50. It's probably terrible math, but even if it's like 33, which I think it's at least 33% chance, that's terrible.
So here's the question though.
That's bad.
Because all the objectives score the exact same every pulse round, do you think that levels this out a little bit?
I mean,
not really, because the same situation repeats itself.
Maybe you get screwed the first pulse round, but then your opponent gets the thing thrown on them, right?
Yeah.
And they've made this wall on their side of the map, so you know there's kind of a little give and take there.
See, I think the consistent score actually makes it worse, because if someone gets that advantage first pulse round, then they can carry that through, because like second and third pulse round, you're going to have stuff all over the map. So it's not going to matter as much what you roll, because you should be able to, move into a position to be able to deal with that relatively quickly. But first pulse round, you don't have that option. So the fact that it's worth the same in first pulse round instead of being only 1 point, like if it was 1 point, like, okay, cool, my opponent going up 2 points, like that sucks, but I can easily deal with that later on in the game. I mean, 1 body count, boom, we're caught up, right? But the fact that it's 3 every single pulse round, I think makes it worse rather than better.
I'm trying to think how you would change the scoring to make it better. Just off the top of my head.
I think 1, 2, 3 would make it way better.
You think so?
Just a normal 1, 2, 3.
Because then what happens if you get screwed in the final pulse round?
Well, you've had a whole game to place your stuff at that point, right? So, I mean, it's kind of your fault.
Well, like I'm wondering if there's a way you could change the scoring to incentivize players to score more than 1 point each turn. So, like the first point you secure every turn is worth 1 point. But then when you secure a second one, it's worth 2 points, and 3 points, and 4 points. So like, if your opponent lets you score all 6 objectives in a pulse round, you've scored a lot of points. They have the same opportunity to get there too, but I mean, it's actual work to get all 6, right?
It'd be 18 points.
Yeah, I mean, even in that situation, you'd still have like some issues. Like, say we run into that 1 and 2 scenario again, then 1 and 2, you score that first turn, you get your 3 points, and then say 5 and 6 roll, and then the first player's in a, they can't get their 3 and 4, so they have to spend another turn getting to 5 and 6 when you can do the same thing, and then you quickly score 5 or 6, and then you're at 4 points, and you're already 7 points up.
I think
I
think if a TO did a house roll, or privateer added this, but in pulse round 1, each player rolls a d6, and the actives. So there's an active objective on each of their sides. You do like even odd. So if you roll an odd, it's 1 or 3. If you roll an even, it's 2 or 4. And so each person has 1 guaranteed in the first pulse round. Because after that, you're going to be all over the table, and it won't matter as much if they both spawn on one side.
Yeah, I think that would be a perfectly fine fix.
See, you guys are really worried about like what happens if they're on the same side. My problem is, what happens if they turn into objectives that have already been scored, and then you can just fortify that and just lock your opponent out that way? Because you have
But
no
they-
incentive to actually go anywhere. You're like, so say I score objective 1, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And then objective 5 becomes that. So then I
Yeah.
have my nemesis fly up and get objective 5, and then I roll a 1. Well, I'm already controlling 1. I have no incentive to do anything with 1, but I can just fortify there and stop
But
you from scoring 1.
You can't. You
And then
re-roll.
that
Does you reroll?
You re-roll. You
no,
can't.
no. 1 would not be active at that point.
No, it stays active.
It stays
it's
active.
not.
Once they're active, they're active. They
Yeah.
they don't become
never come-
inactive until the end of the pulse round.
Oh, I'm confusing this one with the other one.
Yep.
I'm doing the other rules too.
Well, no, the other
Okay.
one, they all stay active as well. So you can have 9
the-
active in the other
Yeah.
one.
But the other one doesn't say you re-roll.
So if you rolled another point again, then you would. Yeah, that's true. I think it should say reroll, and that's actually where I was confused in the last mission when I thought it was reroll because of this mission.
Yeah. I don't know if that was an oversight or if it was intentional because there are 3 permanent objectives that are always active. Who knows?
Oh,
Lots of questions.
I completely read, like, my comprehension is just garbage. I really thought, like, once you scored something,
Yeah.
it went inactive and it went somewhere else. I apparently my reading comprehension is garbage. So now,
That would have been the true whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
100%
Right.
whack-a-mole.
100%.
right. So like, oh my god. So this one just makes more objectives active every time.
Yeah.
Until the end of the
Ooh.
pulse round, and then they all reset, and you reroll 2 new objectives.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like this much.
That's why 5 and 6 are so dangerous, because if you roll 5 and 6, one jack can score, or one squad can score both of them, and it's worth 6 points. And you can just leave and just start stacking stuff.
Terrain dependent. There's 8
Yeah.
inches between them. If you put a building between them,
Look-
and it's not a raker squad.
I don't know.
You'd
I
have
think
a pretty hard
they
time
go on.
doing it.
I think they go on the same building, but maybe with like a big building in the center with 2 different height levels, so you can't.
You have to do something, right?
Yeah.
There is the picture makes them look like they are almost. In the picture, I would swear they look like they're 4 inches apart.
Well, I mean, they're
But 8
actually
inches
less than.
apart is actually a pretty decent amount of space.
They're actually less than 8 inches apart because it's 8 inches to the center.
The centers, yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually like 7.
They're 5.6 inches
Yeah.
apart.
Yeah, I completely missed. Like, I read that one way, and my head is now spinning again.
I feel like your way would be way worse.
Yeah.
Your way would be terrible.
I think your way would be great in narrative play. If you like, instead of having a pulse round limit, you had a score limit, and so the first person to X amount of points, and they had to chase them around the board. I think it'd be really interesting in narrative play.
I
But
feel like both of these missions, I originally read them. You have to chase them around the board,
yeah,
and no, they just make other active places. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, what?
Yeah. I mean, you still kind of have to chase them around the board, but yeah.
Wow, there's just so many active objectives at that point. It just gets nutty.
there could be 9 in that one mission, which is freaking crazy.
I mean, this one is like
Yeah.
the fact that they score 3 end of activation every time is just
Yep.
like, whoa.
I would
Like,
agree.
you know what? There should probably be some kind of mission rule to where you have to have one on opposite sides of the map at all times.
The crazy thing about the other one, the Enigma's Gate, you can have 9 total active, but you can only score with squads and vehicles.
Yeah.
So you can only score 5.
Right.
You can only score 5.
And meaningfully contesting at that point is just like,
Yep.
I don't even know how you do it. Like,
Just solos. You just put down chunky solos or
that's
displacement
all you
index
could
stuff.
do, right? Like,
Yeah. Like,
these two missions are just blowing my mind.
I mean, you got to think that mantlets they came up with the idea of mantlets because of these scenarios and the need to be able to like block space, or, I mean, there's a lot of that needs to happen in these missions because you're going to have so much on the table. It's going to have to go all over the place. You're going to have all these little pockets of combat in all these different locations. And if you lose one and suddenly like 2 objectives pop up in that location and you're able to get there and your opponent isn't, it's going to be really rough in future pulse rounds.
Yeah.
Oh my, that is nutty. Okay,
Yeah.
well, after looking like a dingus and not reading. I read through the mission, and it just did not sink in the way it worked. It was, oh
All right. You ready to talk about some skirmish?
To the skirmish mission. This is where I'm most excited because this is where most of my games end up being is skirmish.
All of us.
So the first new skirmish mission is called Apotheosis Agenda. It has 4 permanent objectives that are 8-inch by 8-inch of corners of each corner of the map. So there's 4 objectives, each in the corner, 8 inches from both sides. They're all alien ruin objectives, and they're considered to be terrain features that provide cover. Any unit can secure alien ruin objectives. And the other special rule is really interesting. A player's cipher hand size is increased by 1 card for each alien ruin objective their forces secure. Scoring. Each player can only score each alien ruin objective once per pulse round, and objectives are scored when a unit ends its activation while securing the objective. So end of activation scoring, 1 point for the first pulse round, 2 points for the second pulse round, 3 points for the third pulse round. What do you guys think?
So, I like this mission overall. I think it's interesting. I think the hand size thing is interesting, and it allows you to play with a bigger hand size, which has been the struggle that I've had lately because I've been trying 14. And I think that makes it interesting, and it also doesn't hurt you for having a mix of cards in your hand. Should we mention the conversation we had earlier, Justin, about Raxus and Mira?
Yeah, I guess we could. Go ahead.
So Raxus and Mira both have a special rule that lets you get a 6th card. So when I first read that rule, and from my understanding of playing Raxus, I thought it just meant I got a 6th card in my hand. But it actually says it means that you have a maximum hand size of 6. So by that wording, it means that they would increase your hand to a maximum of 6, and you wouldn't get these extra cards. So they wouldn't. So rules as written currently, you wouldn't have access to these cards if those models were on the table. Now, I asked some questions to some people that I know that have ties to Privateer, and their initial response was that the intention was that they were supposed to stack. And so we're waiting for an official announcement of whether or not they're supposed to stack or not. But as of right now, rules as written, it sounds like if you play with Mira or Raxus on this mission, the maximum your hand can be, no matter how many objectives you're holding. What do you think about that, Spencer?
I mean, I think that's just like some really piddly rules as written stuff. Because I mean, the way I would read this is like, so player cipher's hand size, I would just read that as maximum hand size. So then Raxus and Mira make the maximum hand size 6 and default maximum hand size 6 instead of 5, and then you increase that by 1 by each of these. That's how I would read that personally. But
well, the way Raxus's rule reads, the Psycho Relay, while this unit is in play, you can have up to 6 cipher cards in your hand at any time. Yep. It basically puts a hard limit at 6.
Mira has the same word. Yeah.
So it's a really kind of strange thing I never thought would actually ever come up.
Yep. I thought it set your hand's maximum size to 6, and then these add to it. I agree. That's how I thought it would work.
Okay.
But we were having this discussion earlier.
They just chose the most unfortunate wording for that rule to make it to where it physically doesn't work with this.
Got you.
It's a very strange thing. This mission, I'm actually like weirdly super excited about this mission.
Oh, me too.
Because one of the things that you see a lot of the time is people getting their cipher, their rack like full of cards they can or can't use, and people that are kind of afraid to throw away cards and stuff. What this mission will allow you to do is like, you're going to be throwing away and picking up cards all the time if this mission plays the way I think it's going to. Because when you leave an objective, so like your first turn, say you start off with 2 things on the board and you just score your objectives, right? Mm-hmm. That means that your hand size goes up to 7. So like your next turn, oh geez, I've got 7 cards in my hand. So then say you've only got those 2 things, you didn't do like a gate crash or some kind of shenanigans, and then you move your first thing off of that objective. Well, your maximum hand size goes down immediately. So now you have 6 cards. You have to immediately discard a card as soon as you leave that objective. Or if you didn't play a card, I guess. Because if you played a card, you would already have 6.
Right.
But like, then when that other unit leaves, oh look, I have to discard another card. I'm back down to my 5. and then you play your second card for the turn and you discard, so you're down to like 4, or down to you'd be down to 3, and then you draw up your 2, but you've already seen so many cards. That's like what, 12 cards you've already seen in your deck or something. It's crazy, and then it only gets crazier like as you start getting onto other points and doing other things throughout the game. I think the way that your hand is going to fluctuate throughout this game is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about how important like cycling your ciphers and just the cipher dynamic aspect of the game is, and this scenario just really changes that up, and I'm super excited for it. I love things that are gonna change gameplay, but like not in what I think is a positive way, like giving you more options, and then like allowing you to cycle through your stuff faster. Just letting you see your ciphers more, which I think is really important in the game. I'm super excited for that. I also really like. I talked about this with the guys a couple of times. Is because of the way it's set up in this weird boxy configuration, and there's nothing really in the center, and they're still relatively far apart from each other. I mean, they're 14 inches, so it makes it to where, and it's an end of activation scoring, which is important. It makes chain activating heavies less of an issue, because like you're not just gonna be able to walk your heavy around and kill everything and then put solos onto points and other stuff and just laugh your way to the bank. Well, Strike Raptor still needs Cortical Rampager to get from one point to the other, right? Because
they're 14 inches apart, right? You said.
They're
right.
scoreable 13.
Unless it is like specifically positioned and there's nothing in the way, again, or models terrain wise to where it can jump
to be
over.
Fair, with Cortical Rampager it doesn't care about models. With Flight it doesn't care about anything. So,
right.
Like the Strike Raptor is just such an asshole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, say you want to jump from one point to another, like all the way across the board, like you're gonna have to move. And if it's you're either, especially if it's a melee Strike Raptor, like you want to move first, but if it's a shooting Strike Raptor, it doesn't care as much. Well, the
Strike Raptor. I will say this: he is going to either need a Bomber Cortex, Ascension Catalyst, or Cortical Rampager, because the way it works out, they're 14 inches apart, but there's an inch scoring zone on each one, so they're actually like 12. And then you take off like some amount. I don't know the exact math on half of the objective or on the whole objective. So 0.8. So they're like 11 point something. And then you have the base size of the Strike Raptor, which is just about 2. So it's just over the 9 inches that you need. What ends up happening is they either need any of those 3 things, or if there happens to be a ladder that lets them get some extra movement, then that happens. The Strike Raptor is kind of problematic because like I think every other heavy this mission is kind of fair and balanced for, right? Like I do understand that a Nemesis can move like 10 inches because of the way that Battlecruiser works.
Yep.
But it's a little bit different, and I think the 10 inches I think we decided was not enough. So that's fine.
I know how much you love your Bomber Strike Raptor, and this is the perfect scenario for a Bomber Strike Raptor.
Yes, this is going to show how OP it is. Everybody else can see. Everybody else can understand. I'm telling you right now.
I like this mission. I think it has the best aspects of Boiling Point, but with more objectives that's going to force the army to spread across the table. I love the hand mechanic. I think it's going to be really great and interesting to see how that affects and how people decision making with what they keep and what they pitch as things die or they take new objectives. I think it's probably for me. I think it's my favorite of the 3 new skirmish missions.
Yeah, I'd probably say that. I'm really excited for Moonshadow, but I really like this one. It's really good. Like Boiling Point, we've decided is like the most balanced skirmish scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like this is, like you just said, it's Boiling Point plus. Like I think it's going to be even better than Boiling Point, which is saying a lot.
Oh,
It is.
those are some strong words there, Sneaky.
I mean, it's Boiling
Although-
Point with another objective and fun cipher dynamics.
Actually, you know what though? I am excited about this one because a lot of the times you see players bringing one squad in skirmish because they need it to get those
Yep.
geometrics out of their geometrics. Yeah, that's
Yep.
it, right?
Yeah,
Geometrics out of their hand. The orange cards.
Orange cards.
To get those out of their hands. The thing is, with this weird, like, my hand size is always in flux kind of thing, you can kind of find cheater ways to get those out of your hand. So I'm wondering if this mission could be the one mission where you don't actually need to bring a squad. Now, I do think squads are valuable in this because they get to move further and the objectives are further apart.
Yeah.
But I think this mission might be one where, you can kind of test without a squad.
Oh man, you've been wanting that. I know you've been wanting that.
I know. Well, I'm mostly playing AC, and I normally feel punished for playing my squad.
Yep.
And then the funny thing is, when Kickstarter 3 comes and we've got cadres, people might be running 2 squads in skirmish.
Yep.
So
I'm going to be running 2 squads in skirmish.
Stupid flying medium-based craziness they've got coming. Like,
everyone will be playing 2 squads. I think every cadre has 2 squads.
yeah, I mean that's if the cadre is worth taking,
I think it will be.
Yeah.
Well,
but because that's half the cadre by itself is half your skirmish. So they got
5 choices.
It's 4 for all of them.
With the hero slot unless that model's free, I think it's 5.
If that model's free, that'd be amazing. But each cadre so far is not so far. We know all the cadres. It is 5.
It's 4.
Yeah, they're
4 models,
they're all
4 models for
models.
cadre, and then a fifth for
the fifth.
extra.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah. Also, I just want to mention that the pictures of the terrain and stuff on this particular one and the next one we're going to talk about, super cool. It's definitely Tinker Turf.
Yep.
But I haven't seen purple Tinker Turf, and I want it.
Yeah, it might be because I know Privateer has been working with them and they promoted their last Kickstarter. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Warcaster specific Tinker Turf in the near future.
I hope so, because
that would be really cool.
Yeah, I've been saying one set of Industrial Starter from Tinker Turf and one of those $10 Infinity packs of a couple of buildings is perfect setup for a skirmish board, in my opinion.
Probably pretty true. Yeah, so I think we all agree we really like this scenario. I think it's going to play much like all the things we love about Boiling Point. I think we're going to get them, but we're also going to get this weird dynamic with the cipher cards, and I think we're all excited for that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if we're done with Apotheosis agenda, let's get to Moonshadow. Moonshadow is very, very interesting. You have 4 objectives on the battlefield that are kind of like in a diamond. They're very much like Chaos Theory, except without the middle one, except they're all 8 inches up.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that this book really loves 8 inches on the scenarios. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but there's a lot more 8 inches involved.
Yeah, maybe they just, after releasing the other one and it all being 6 inches, they're like, yeah, we don't like 6 inches. Let's make it 8.
Well, I mean, 6 inches, it's very possible to slam stuff off the table if you're in a bad position, and 8 denies that, which I think is a good change.
It also forces everything closer together, too.
Yep.
Yeah. 6 inches also puts a portion of the objective zone in the deployment area, which is annoying to me because you can't deploy there.
There's a small part of your deployment zone that you can't even use. I understand that it's the most minute, stupid thing to be upset about, but it is something that has always annoyed me.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. It is annoying for no reason, but it is.
So then you have these 4 objectives, and they are not terrain, and they do not provide cover. Sneaky, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the first time in a skirmish scenario there is objective that isn't terrain or cover?
Technically, there is one in the first contact packet.
Mm-hmm.
The center objective isn't terrain, doesn't provide cover. The other 2 do, but yes. Other than that,
okay. So special rules. Any unit can score the strategic location objectives, which is all of them. Models without revelation suffer -1 rat for every full 5 inches away they are from their target. Models with their bases completely within obscuring terrain gain stealth. Scoring. Each player can only score each objective once per pulse round. An objective is scored when a unit ends its activation while securing the objective. 1 point for in the first pulse round, 2 in the second pulse round, 3 in the third pulse round. What do you guys think?
So I had a random thought. So do you have revelation if you have the role Revelator?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say too. There is no revelation in the game. It doesn't exist.
Is there not?
No, it's
the ability is called Revelator.
It doesn't exist.
What a revelation!
Indeed. I was checking your Hearst card, and then I realized that it's just a symbol, and I was like, no, I don't have my book.
It is Revelator.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is a typo.
It is.
That's a pretty funny typo.
Oh.
So nobody gets to ignore these rules.
Until a fact.
I'm pretty sure it's pretty safe to say that is a typo, and they meant to type Revelator.
Yeah. That's just funny. I'm excited for the mission just because like it's interesting. Like it changes things up a little bit. I also like it just because it makes people want to take melee stuff because it's more viable.
Yep.
And I like melee stuff in this game. Other people seem to not, but I'm a big melee fan in Warcaster. Even though imps, I don't run melee stuff, so me actually.
I was about to say, I see a sentinel that has 4 ranged weapons. I see demons with 3 ranged weapons. That's
well. So here's
I don't know if I've been meleeed by Empyreans in a very long time.
So it's interesting because it's going to change. I think if this mission is a regular thing that people see in the cycle, and I'm actually not a big fan of this mission. It sort of is a slap to the face for Ace because everybody gets stealth, which is their thing they have to pay for on top of their other abilities. But I think it could change how people build their pendulum lists if this is something that we see in active rotation in a lot of events, because it's going to force people to sideboard melee options if they're going to play ranged for most other games. Because in this mission, playing ranged marcher rules is just bad.
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
Unless I'm within 5 inches of you all the time. I'm rat 3. I could be rat 2.
You're probably still rat 4 because you're probably tuned up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, for a jack, but like, what happens with my squads? What happens?
Does martial worlds actually activate anything other than jacks?
I don't know. I haven't played them. I haven't played them in 6 or 8 months, so
I don't know. I play against Josh's marcher worlds, and it's just hey Strike Raptor, hey Strike Raptor, hey Strike Raptor.
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely going to incentivize people bringing in the ranged or the melee squads, which I'm excited about because, like, I have in my sideboard for Pendulum, right? I've got my Vanguards as my squad sideboard choice, but I never use them. I always just use my Guardians. But on this particular one, I'll sub in my Vanguards and I'll swap out Reiteration Complex for the extra melee attack card. Like, it just makes me play with different stuff, and I'm excited about that. I doubt I'm bringing a Melee Sentinel, despite thinking Melee Sentinel, like, it has potential, but it's just not as good as the range ones, because, like, my Sentinel, for example, most of its guns are range 10, so unless I'm at the very, very tippity-tip possibility of hitting something, then I'm only at -1 rat on 90% of my attacks. Right?
Is an armed 5... melee daemon worth something to think about in your sideboard?
So I already run
in his sideboard.
Okay. No, I already run 2 melee daemons. I've got a Hound that's got the Starfire Array and the Stealth Cortex. I call it my MC Hammerjack because you can't touch it, because if it's charged, it has Defense Matrix, Stealth, and Cover. And
gross. Like, I hate Imperial every time.
Yeah, and it's got the Protean Forge, which I love because I love having options, and the phase projectile cannon, because why wouldn't you? And then the other one is the same setup, Protean Forge and phase projectile, but it has the shield and the Wraith Cortex. So it's arm 5, and then if you do hit it, then it gets to move 4 inches basically, which is pretty cool.
Which is super crazy because it's so much better than I'd never seen the Wraith Cortex until my last until the second to last Empyrean game, where it basically teleported across the table. I was expecting it to do the same thing as a Firebrand.
Well,
it does not.
So it does and it doesn't.
It doesn't.
So yeah. So the thing is with the Wraith is it has to be charged and it has to be hit.
Yeah.
Whereas Firebrand, it only has to be targeted, and it does not have to be charged.
Yeah. But I was planned to be able to defend against the movement of it, and it just ignored it like it wasn't.
Oh, it just hopped over some stuff, and it was just like,
I basically
later, bro.
Annihilation Vortexed it to a spot and put it where I didn't think it was going to be able to get over on my side, and then it immediately just hopped over like nothing was there.
Oh.
You actually probably gave it movement in that situation.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing about it is Firebrands can reflex up ladders, and Wraith Cortexes cannot. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. But so I'm super excited for this. Back to Moonshadow. I'll actually probably wind up subbing in my Wraith for my Eidolon demon, because that's the shooty demon, and run two melee demons and keep my Sentinel the same. And then sub in my Vanguards over my Guardians, and be a happy camper.
Yeah. So as when not playing AC, I like this mission a lot. I think it's interesting. It changes the dynamic of stuff. When playing AC, it really is just a slap in the face. It makes their weaknesses stronger. The fact that most of their stuff is Rat 3, it hurts them more than anybody else. It gives people the abilities that they have to pay for to get, which they're ignoring, but they don't have abilities to replace. I mean, it's an interesting mission, but it really is just a slap in the face.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what? I don't think it's that bad. I think that AC, if you're playing AC as a shooty army, you're probably doing it wrong anyways.
But you have to take some shooting. You have to take some shooting.
You do, but I mean, you want to be shooting the things that are on the point you're trying to score, right? That's the way end of activation scoring works anyways. Like, you want to shoot the things that are right in front of you, because that's how you score in these. So
yeah,
I think it's going to come up. I think that, when you kill that thing and you're like, well, I guess I have a hollow fade cannon, we're going to go downtown, and you're Rat 1, like, that's going to suck, right? Like, nobody likes that. But, what else are you going to do, right? And I think that one thing that I do like about this map is it encourages people to put obscuring terrain on the board, which is something that you don't really see much in my experience.
I think all of these missions make obscuring terrain a lot more viable to be played.
See, the reason I hadn't been using obscuring terrain before was like back from Kickstarter 1 and being terrified of Scout Dustwolves, because they could just walk up, shoot you, slip this place back, and then boom, you can't shoot them back, and it's like, ugh. But since I haven't been seeing those on the board much, like, I'm not as worried about it. I'm actually super excited to start using.
Now the melee Strike Raptor just comes up, punks your model, and then Cortical Rampagers through.
Yeah, but there's nothing you can do about that.
But that's going to happen. That's going to happen once a pulse round in this mission, because you're not going to get Cortical Rampager more than one.
Well, so these zones are. That was one of the points I wanted to make. Are deceptively close to each other, because like they look in the picture to be super far apart. Like, I was thinking I'd be able to have like a building and like a small building in between like the 2 points, and like an obscuring terrain in between that. No, I have one obscuring terrain in between all 4 of these points. Yeah. And that covers up the entire middle. Like,
well, it's like 14 inches from center to center on both sides, right? So it's a good distance. Like, you're not going to be able to go from like one far one to the other far one very easily. But going from the middle one to either the side ones is actually very, very doable. And I think it's going to be a very, very interesting mission for people to get used to.
Yep.
I don't think it changes much for ISA. I mean, there might be an argument to bring in defenders, but why when you can just take enforcers and keep everything the same? right?
Right. Well,
But-
here's the thing. Here's one thing that it does mess with my ISA. Is one of my favorite things to do is bring in a Morningstar turn 1, put it on the first objective, and then use my immolator that has 19-inch range to just blast something on the other side of the table, right?
Not
Yeah.
happening.
I mean, I'm going to potentially probably be at a -3 rat for that now. I might be able to get by with -2, but so rat 1 doesn't usually get that done very easily. So my turn 1 play where I just punk a solo is probably off the table.
Oh, something worth noting though on that particular point is it's just rat, it's not focus. So AC
That's
turn
true,
1
too.
Furies are still just as scary.
See, this helps AC. To be fair, ISA can almost do their shenanigans, but their Weaver doesn't have the movement thing.
Yeah, they're close. They're 2 inches off.
No, they're 1 inch off because they're 12, AC's 13. But AC can spike to get like a better position for it and get around terrain a little better.
Yeah.
So it's a weird dynamic. But that is a good point. I was thinking about that, and then we got lost in demons and firebrands, and I lost it.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think Weaver is going to be super important on this particular map. Also, I'm actually this is Empyrean OP. I'm actually going to be spawning mantlets. So
I'm actually going to be shooting.
and-
Oh god, no, because his
intentionally.
mantlets have revelation.
Yeah, they get. There is no revelation. It's a
I know.
lie.
I'm going to be
sorry.
targeting
Bad
mantlets and
information, 'cause I think it's
annihilating
better than
objector-
the scenario.
annihilating vortex them around so that they're not in a good spot.
The revelation is a lie, everyone.
Yeah, so Empyreans actually have a weird advantage that normally they don't care about their mantlets because everything ignores line of sight and cover and there's
Normally,
sprays.
no one cares about mantlets.
But in this particular one, they actually get a weird buff for putting out a mantlet every once because it does give Revelator, and that could get them to ignore that -1 rat per 5 inches. So
That actually won Ryan a game one time. He had something within 2 inches of a mantlet, literally just barely in range of a hunter that had a charge on it. That Red had put on there specifically to keep it safe, and Ryan was able to pop it off, and it was so close, and no one remembers that the mantlets have Revelator. Who's gonna remember?
Well, it's because it's a rule that doesn't come up.
Because stealth doesn't come up.
Stealth doesn't come up in skirmish period anyways.
Mhm.
But I mean, besides AC, what do you have for stealth? You have the March of Worlds vehicle, which never uses that maneuver. Or is it just Fiddles that has it? Well, it's either Fiddles or the vehicle, or both has it. I think it's
Either way,
playing possum or something.
Either way, they're not using it.
They're not using it.
Yeah.
Sudal has all the time stealth. He has #1 stealth in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And
Zen. I don't know if, and I think it's just Nyx. Nyx and Hound's demons have stealth.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
There's a
outside of
Nemesis
AC,
Stealth Cortex,
Oh yeah.
which is AC still.
Right, I'm saying, AC has stealth
Yeah.
very often, right? Because the Nemesis has a stealth
There's-
Cortex. The Scourge has a stealth.
There's
Attachment.
a hunter, and isn't there a remains in play card that lets you stealth a squad or a unit or something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one of
Vision
the
Corps.
ciphers, right?
Yeah.
Funny thing is that the reverse of that, the cipher that lets you ignore stealth, does not give you Revelator.
Yep.
Why?
So you can shoot stuff in obscuring terrain, but you still suffer the range penalty.
Yeah, you still suffer the range.
Oh.
Well, you can't. You might not necessarily be able to shoot it in an obscuring terrain.
Well,
if there's,
right, depending on where it is in the terrain.
But
Oh
that'll
my.
be sick.
That's crazy. So this scenario, I like it. I kind of need to play it a few times to figure out how ball breaking that minus rat ability is.
I mean, listen, this was the first scenario that I made a map for, so I'm excited for it. Just because it's crazy. It sounds crazy.
It does.
It is crazy. So are we ready to move on to the final scenario?
Yep.
Yes, we are.
This one's called Unconventional Warfare, and I think that one is a very appropriate name because they have a vestigial objective point in it. So it's a scenario with 5 objective points. one in each corner, 6 inches in on the corners, and then there's one dead center on the map. Okay, and I think they had something really cool planned for this one, because the ones in the corners are gate nodes, and the ones on opposite corners from each other are numbered the same. So there's, on each side of the board, there's a 1 and 2, and then you flip them on the other side of the board for 1 and 2. And then the one in the middle is specifically called a strategic point. The strategic points do not provide cover and are not terrain. Meanwhile, all the gates in the corners are terrain and provide cover. Special rules. This has the exact same teleportation rule as the primary mission from the primary mission. So at the end of your turn, a unit within 3 inches of one of the gate nodes can be teleported to the other gate node of the same number within 2 inches of it. It is a reposition within 2 inches of it, not redeploy. So you can start scoring that objective with that. So the scoring is players score victory points at the end of each pulse round for each gate node objective they secure. One during the first pulse round, 2 during the second pulse round, 3 during the third pulse round. There is no mention of scoring the strategic point objective. So the strategic point objective is, according to the scoring rules for this, just there for show. It doesn't score you any points. It doesn't provide you cover. It doesn't do anything. It is just something you put in the middle of the board. What do you guys think?
Same thing I had to say about cat and mouse. Like, I like the teleporting mechanic because I think it'll be fun and interesting and dynamic, but I'm worried about it from balance reasons. Also, I really want to know what that point in the middle does.
Yep, and there's a big blank spot below victory conditions, which could have been what that was supposed to be, or maybe they play tested it and whatever they were planning just was too broken and powerful, and so they deleted it and never added back in a way to score it. I'm interested to see how scoring it, if it's just like 3 points all the time, if it's the same 1, 2, 3. If it's 3 points all the time, it'd be super interesting and important.
Yeah, it could change. Like, whatever they decide to do with that objective can completely change the entire scenario.
Right.
So
the other big thing about this mission comparative to the other two is the other two, the objectives are 8 inches from the edges. This one are 6 inches from the corner, so you have to watch out when teleporting a lot more than the other teleport mission of placing in a spot where you could be slammed off the table.
This one also has now 2 points that are kind of touching into your deployment zone that you can't deploy on, like we were talking about earlier. Which
it's gonna be super
kind of triggered.
Yep,
it's gonna be annoying.
I mean, it's fine. It's not a huge deal. It's just one of those small triggering things. I think this is an interesting mission. I mean, you have a lot of space between the two objectives. It's like 18 inches between the center points of the two objectives of any two objectives that are scoreable. It's very.
I mean, you're pretty much only going to be using the teleportation in order to get between the different points and then dropping gates on top of them.
Without that center point, like, I don't know how often people are actually going to be using gates to get across the map. I think you're still going to do it, but it's not going to feel as good as it probably should. And I think you're going to need squads to make it efficient, right? And then once you have something on that other side of the map, man, you're going to fight to keep it there because you do not want to do that trek again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's exactly the same as trying to traverse the 2 deployment zone objectives from Boiling Point. And it's just like, it's such a commitment that normally you don't want to be trying to do it randomly. And in Boiling Point, a lot of the times what you'll do is you'll spread out to that point on the side and then try and kind of spread out from there. And kind of do kind of dash across the board like that.
Yeah. Or you do like
much dead space.
Yeah, or you do a multi-gate play where you like walk a solo up or a squad, and then it drops a gate, and whenever it pops out of that squad, drops another gate, and then you're there. So
yeah,
it just depends. Yeah,
I think you're gonna be able to put good pressure on like one of your opponent's points without the teleport thing, but like I think the teleport thing is what's gonna make the mission. That said, I do think that. If I had to say, I think that any particular faction is going to have a really good time with this style mission, I think it's going to be ISA where you can just teleport a Morningstar over onto your opponent's objective. You don't have to put anything else into it. You just have that Morningstar that you just pull out of a gate on your own side of the map, so they probably didn't get a chance to deal with it. And then you port it over there, and he's on their objective, and now they have this 6 armor thing that's just sitting on their objective. And if you did happen to have any arc on it, and they try and deal with it, then you can just start shooting them back. I think this mission is like I want to love this mission, but I'm tentatively afraid that it's not very balanced.
I'm so worried about dealing with that Morningstar teleporting on the top of turn 1.
Yeah, I'm also just super worried about just second player advantage in general. Like, if it wasn't for that, I'd be super excited for the thing. Like, even the Morningstar porting over, like, there's slams, there's displaces, like there's a lot of other ways you can deal with a Morningstar, but having the second player at the end of the pulse round being able to just port something onto a point and contest it is just, it's a problem.
Yeah.
So
or
again,
a Sentinel teleporting over. Can't be pushed, can't be slammed, not dealing with it, and it's in your enemy's lines right near to wherever they're going to have gates, probably.
Yeah. I think if they change this to redeploy, I'd feel way better about it, because then the second turn advantage wouldn't be an issue. And yeah, so I think
it's much of an issue, and I think redeploy fixes a lot of it. I'm wondering if even end of activation kind of would help. Because like it's end of turn that you're doing this teleport, so like the teleport doesn't actually affect you being able to score any particular point.
Right.
So it's actually, I think it's a very interesting and dynamic scenario, and I'm very interested to see how it actually plays. But current rules as written currently, I think second turn player has just so much advantage. Now, admittedly, you do have to be securing the point that you teleport from.
Yep.
So I guess there is a way that, especially now, like.
I mean, that's first player advantage that I was thinking of.
Well, here's the crazy thing. So first player comes in, I'm ISA, right? So I do my Gatecrasher Morningstar thing, yada yada, and then I teleport my Morningstar onto your objective on the top of my turn 1.
Yep.
And then, you've got to remove
secure it, and I can't teleport from it.
You don't even get to do the teleport shenanigans off of it.
That's the thing I was worried about.
So yeah, there's definitely some weird stuff that can happen with this one. Like I say, I want to love it. We will see.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm so curious what that middle objective should be doing.
Yeah. I mean, the counter with like that first player play is like you get, second player gets deployment advantage. So if you see the person putting the Morningstar over by 1, then cool, I'm gonna put whatever I want to be teleporting over on 2, and then poof, I'm over on the other side. And again, Empyreans are stupid, but say it's me, right? Like my initial is Nyx, Fulcrum, Oculus, right? So I could have Nyx on 2, Fulcrum over by 1, so that when you teleport the Morningstar over, Fulcrum goes up, hits it, displaces it off, and then I don't have to worry about it.
And maybe Oculus even gets a chance to velocity projector it off the board.
Ooh, now we're getting fancy.
Yeah, see that? It's a problem. Like it can, like I think the Fulcrum Oculus like tag team is like one of the scariest things in Empyreans. That's why I have to kill the Oculus as often as I do. Like that thing against me, it does not get to stay on the table.
You just want to kill the Weavers, man. Like why don't you hate on the Weavers, man?
Hey, it's a love-hate. I love my Weavers. I hate your Weavers.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, if you're not killing Weavers, I don't know what you're doing. Furies are terrifying.
Yeah. So we've gone through each of the objectives. Did anybody else have anything to say about this one?
No, not really for me.
So
No,
I kind of just want to talk about some of the new mechanics, and just base feelings about what we think about these mechanics, as far as in the missions they are, or in a bubble, or ways that they could be implemented better, right? So like first one, we'll talk about the teleporting from this one. I think we're all on the same page here. If it said redeploy instead of reposition the model, I think we would all feel much more comfortable with these teleporting mechanics. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely.
I mean, I still think that it would make it easier to deny people. Like, yes, we
Well,
did the
that's the
math.
whole.
We
That's
did
the
the math.
problem right now. Is you deny people so much by.
Well, right. I mean,
you're denying points at the end of the pulse round by doing this.
We did the math and we figured out that it's not worth the investment to deny them to be able to teleport to your gate by surrounding it with stuff. But I think it'd be easier to do, and for those people that wanted to do that. Overall, it's a bad strat to do, but I think that the reason it's not like that is because that was brought up during playtest, probably. Because it's just a 1-inch ring around it that you have to put models on. But yeah, I think it would probably be better if it was redeploy, because then the only problem with redeploy is that you would lose continuous
it would heal
effects
you.
And heal you.
Yeah, we didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Would it heal you?
Yep.
Yeah, if it's a redeploy.
And you lose activation tokens too.
Well, you know what? Even if they just adjusted to say reposition outside of the scoring zone of an objective, but within 2 inches of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
They would have as long. I think we all mean the same thing. We just want the same model to teleport from one side of the battlefield to the other, but not contest the objective without somebody having the opportunity to deal with it.
Agreed. Yeah. They say within 2 inches, but not within scoring, or within 1 inch. Outside of 1 inches, but within 2 inches.
Yeah. I mean, it would take a couple more words, but they apparently chopped out an entire objective from the final one, so I think that wouldn't be too bad.
They got the
keep harping on that, huh?
They've got the space.
It's so funny to me. Like, how do you leave this big blaring white dot in the middle of your objective and in the middle of your mission and don't explain anything about it, except that it does nothing?
Well, I mean,
it isn't even like a free cover in the middle of the board, right? It isn't even like this free like oasis where I can get cover while I'm trying to attack these other points the normal way. It's literally nothing. It's a token.
Yeah. And if it was just the image and there was just the dot there, it's like, okay, cool, whatever. But it's literally mentioned 2 or 3 times.
Yep.
No, it's just mentioned the once, like when it describes that it does nothing.
No, it says it
once.
Yeah, it's saying once when you place it, and then once when it says that it's a token. Yeah.
It's so weird. Like.
Okay. Anyways, teleporting. We've already covered that scenario.
Okay.
Teleporting. I really like the mechanic. I think it's super cool. It could be really fun, very dynamic, but it needs to be modified a little bit in order to not give scenario advantage.
I think modified that little bit. I think I could even fully get behind these missions in competitive play, despite my raw hatred for end of pulse round scoring in competitive play.
Yeah, if they made it to where it doesn't have that huge second player advantage, then these would probably be my favorite scenarios. I haven't played them, but just knowing like what I enjoy about the game and it being so dynamic, these could potentially be my favorite scenarios.
I think that it's a little too hard to plan, especially with the variety of other missions. For competitive play. I mean, I think it could work, and I think it's a very cool thing, but I think it's much cooler in a narrative context. I think this is a really interesting mission for narrative play. I think that if you are building your own missions for narrative scenarios, the addition of the teleport mechanic to some objectives makes really interesting things for future narrative play or even fan-made competitive play scenarios. I like the mechanic a lot. I just don't really like it, like the missions that we have for it for competitive play.
So we beat up teleporting. What do you guys think about the randomly activating points? You know, like the one mission where end of activation, you get on the point, it activates other points. What do you guys think about that mechanic?
Like Jay was just talking about, very fun narratively. Do not want to see it in the tournament.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's so easy to, especially as the game goes on, just give your opponent a point.
I think that there's too much RNG involved once you start involving that, and especially I think you'll also have big dummies like me that read things wrong and have like all kinds of craziness going.
Yeah,
so
I mean we've had people read boiling point wrong, so yeah.
Ouch. Way to call him out. That's rude. But
He's
it's
gonna
only
listen.
rude
He's
if
gonna
he actually
listen.
listens to the episode long enough to hear this. So
Exactly. And Josh is already gonna hate us, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and skip that next point. I mentioned the vestigial scenario. Vehicle scoring. What do you guys think about that? Missions that specifically want you to have vehicles to score.
I mentioned my thoughts earlier. I'm not a if it was more prevalent, then maybe I'd be okay with it. But there's only 2 scenarios, and having it be like disenfranchising people that don't want to buy the multiples of the $60 models that don't get used a lot in other situations, especially on Pendulum, like in a Pendulum where you're not going to be running a lot of primary missions in general. I'm not a fan just because of the financial aspect. That's it.
I don't know.
So
For
he's
me,
ethically against vehicle scoring.
go ahead. Answer that, Sneaky.
What was that?
I said you were ethically against it.
Sure.
For me, outside ISA, I think that every faction is going to run at least one. At least when playing competitively, it's going to run at least one light vehicle, and it also opens up the future of adding heavy vehicles and other types of vehicles.
Yes.
Especially if they add in because I think the vehicle for March Worlds from Wave 3 is on a large base, at least in the concept art it is, but it says it's a vehicle. So vehicles aren't necessarily going to be stuck at 80 millimeter bases.
Well, the Razorbat was on a 50 at first too. So
well, yeah, right. We'll see what happens.
That goes.
Right, we'll see what happens. But I think that that most people are going to have a vehicle if they have one faction. Like I'm going to have 2 right out the bat. I'm planning to get multiple Zeniths when I get into Empyreans, like just because I love the model. So I think that, and also that a heavy with an extra weapons kit is roughly the same price as a light vehicle. So it's pretty close in price, I think, to including heavy jacks. It's another heavy jack's cost, but I think that light vehicles are going to be pretty common. That being said, the fact that it adds another dynamic of play that heavy light vehicles, the ones that are going to actually be able to score these objectives and do well scoring these objectives, are the ones that are probably the most fragile and easy to kill. Is kind of rough, but and the ones that aren't fragile are the ones that are going to struggle to score the objectives as well as the others.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't fragile are
So like
fragile?
the March
Razorbat.
the Razorbat. The Razorbat's not going to be able to zip between points.
Yeah, it's slow.
He's not going
It's
to be able to score multiples, but the
Right.
thing is, the Razorbat just gets to kill everything on the objective right in front of it to
Yeah.
score it a lot easier.
Yeah,
and then
but
on
most-
top of that, he can put on his maneuver where he gets, oh, did you want to score this? Well, no, I'm going to during your turn, like.
Yeah, but except
Yeah.
for the one mission that we've all agreed that is pretty much just the narrative mission where you're grabbing people and moving to an objective. All the other ones the vehicles can score are pretty. There are a lot of objectives on the table, so you ignoring that objective isn't going to hurt you big time.
Yeah. My statement about costs earlier is just with the current state of the game, as more vehicles come out and stuff, then like I assume everybody's gonna have at least one vehicle. Yeah. But for these vehicle scenarios, like it makes you feel like you want to have at least 2, if not more. And like also it also slightly terrifies me because Kickstarter 3, right? We got the cadres. Martial World's going to get access to the Storm Vulture, and I'm terrified of what that model is going to be able to do. I'm just imagining the Nemesis and the Strike Raptor had a baby, and it's disgusting.
No. We're not going there. Yeah. It's not going to do that.
Yeah, and so that's also puts Martial Worlds into for the next year at least, right? Because we're not going to have Kickstarter 3 models in hand until December, so then we're not going to have another Kickstarter for another year. Then Martial Worlds is the only faction that has 2 vehicle options, right? And so we're going to be stuck with Interceptors and Scythes and Zeniths, which some are good and some aren't, for at least another year, from the time this goes live, right? So that's just kind of where I'm at.
I don't know. I really don't see and I've actually, I know it's happened in your leagues before, but I really don't see people. Maybe.
Well, I think the AC plays with 2 sides. Easy.
Do
You
they?
take 2
No.
sides.
AC
Yeah,
can't
absolutely.
take 2 sides. I think the problem is
No.
the AC player has
size?
to look at the terrain on the map and then make a real decision from there.
Well, we're talking about these vehicle scenarios, right? So they're gonna be, the terrain's gonna have to be set up to where vehicles work. And in full size, AC definitely takes 2 sides. You take 2 sides in skirmish sometimes.
I know.
Like,
I love sides.
No.
Well,
I will
love
100%
sides.
disagree
They
with that.
frustrate me, but I love them.
I have seen March of World lists with 2 Razorbats. I've never, pretty much everybody just copies my Empyrean list, and I hate Zeniths, so I only run Nyx, and Interceptors are just bad.
I will own 3.
They're pretty, although surprise.
I will own one. I will own one, and it will probably always be Duchess, but I will not own more than
I was surprised when I saw the models that I actually really liked the Scythe model, and I liked it more than the Interceptor.
I really don't like the Scythe model. I think it looks terrible.
Yeah.
So,
Dude, I love the Scythe. Well, mine's not going to look like the regular Scythe.
Well, mine probably won't either. But have you seen the banana blade that goes on the side of it? It looks like a banana.
Does it? I haven't. I haven't.
I'm going to look
I
a little
haven't-
close.
The blade is as wide as the rest of the vehicle.
Yeah, I haven't seen it from that side.
Ah.
So
Yeah, it's
that could change things.
My only problem with the way it looks is like the way they have it sitting. It's not high enough for that blade to actually swing all the way around. Like it would actually hit the ground on the way.
No, it doesn't swing all the way around. It's hard fixed into the other side of the vehicle, and it moves up and down, but not right and left. It doesn't spin like Matt described in the original. It literally is a fixed weapon that moves up and down on the right side of the vehicle.
Yeah. I mean,
What?
Yeah.
You could do.
Well, I'm not saying like the model shouldn't move like that, but like it should look like the model could move like that, like the full spin around, right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't do that. It's literally how it works is it literally flies by and drags the blade through you. The blade does not spin at all.
Well, no,
could ever spin.
Okay. I don't know. I'd have to see the model because the way it was
I'm
supposed to work.
model.
So if you look at the
around
weapon
the axis.
attachment, if you look at the weapon attachment for the gun, it's exactly the same on the other side.
Got you. I'll have to check it out.
I don't know.
But-
My scythe is going to be so modded. It's
Mine's gonna have a big sight that it's dragging behind it on a chain.
His Justin's is gonna spin.
yeah, mine will spin. Mine's actually going to be a big drill, is what it's going to end up being.
Yeah.
So I'm excited
right.
for that.
right.
Okay, so I think we've talked about vehicle scoring.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about mechanics like that failures chart from the very first mission?
I think they're fun. I loved the Tinker scenario from First Contact, and this is like very similar to it, except the Tinker one had some positive and some negative, and this one's way more skewed towards negative. But I think they can add fun dynamics to a game. Again, not tournament, but with definitely beer and pretzels. That.
Well,
scenario.
what was also cool about that Tinker one is that you had to do an action to do it, right?
Yeah. The Tinker one I also like changed your activation economy, so that one. I really like that scenario.
Yeah, I think it's a cool scenario. This one is kind of weird because it happens, and like you're like, well, now I just lost my squad because they're all on fire, and it's like, I don't know how I quite feel about it. I'll have to play it, but I do think it's very narrative skewed. I do think there is a world where you could make this random happenings chart like be less severe things and maybe more focus on just arc and make it work for a competitive environment.
So concept for this mission. At a convention, you set up tables for this. I know that Justin and I don't drink. I don't know if you drink, Spencer, but you could roll on the chart when it comes up. Either roll on the chart or take a shot, and do this as beer as like drunk.
Literally
forecaster.
beer and pretzels.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
Or
You would
we
be
do
real
hot
drunk
shot
real
for
quick,
us
because if
like
you're
hot
scoring
sauce
like
for
3 of
us.
these objectives a turn,
Yeah.
you have 9 shots by the time you're done with one Warcaster game. I don't think anybody
Or-
wants to be any part of that.
drink a
I'm sold.
chug a beer or drink part of a beer. Or, yeah,
But
there's a bunch of stuff you can do.
I think there's a world where it could be done
Yeah.
to be like interesting, but
Pick
balanced.
a penalty from a hat.
Well, bring up War Budgies. He had a scenario where at the end of each turn, I think it's both player turns. At the end of each turn, you would roll a die for like these geysers he had on the board, and on a 6, things within so many inches of them would get charged that they could have charged. But if they were fully charged, they would actually have to roll a die and see if they took damage. I think if you did something like that, it would be very flavorful and very cool, but not so skewy that you couldn't play it in a competitive format.
Yeah, I think like there's definitely a lot of cool options for these chart type things and stuff like that. Like once again, the Tinker one, awesome. This one's just so negatively focused. Like it's like basically you're just trying to see whether you can trigger the player or not. Like I just see this as like the trigger scenario. Like how upset is somebody gonna get? And like I know like I wouldn't be able to play this scenario with certain people. You know,
I like the one where it's like, hey,
people.
you get your opponent gets to put a gate within so many inches of this objective. It's like what?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh
like,
man, there's a lot of randomness going on that one, and I think I love that they're existing with these kinds of things. I just think that particular iteration is bad for competitive, but I think there is an iteration that could be good for.
It's just really hard with the RNG, but potentially.
Any more thoughts on that one, Jay?
No.
Okay, I think we kind of beat this one up pretty good, but how do we feel about the scenario where the cipher hand gets to be increased?
I love it.
Great.
I think that mechanic is very cool. It's very flavorful. I think it adds a new dynamic to the game because, like, I know there's a lot of the times where I'll know so-and-so's played this card, right? But so it's not an out for them later on. But in this particular scenario, you can cycle through your cipher deck so quick in weird situations that I think that kind of like being able to monitor your opponent's discard pile becomes less. It's not as easy to do anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you start flipping through your deck as much faster in certain situations.
Yeah, and it also creates like fun scenarios for you where it's like, okay, cool. If I score this objective, I know I've only got 2 cards, like so many cards left in my deck, and I need to draw Impulse Inducer for next turn. So like if I score this, I know I'm gonna draw it, and like stuff like that, which is just cool.
Yeah, there's new levels of play, and I mean you could argue that the game is balanced around your cipher hand cycling at a specific rate, but I think this doesn't skew the normal game rules enough to be problematic.
Yeah, and the main thing is it's also not, it doesn't really disproportionately affect any specific faction, unlike the arc boosters.
Yep.
Right?
I mean,
because
fair, I think it does help Marcher World, Critical Rampager more often, but
well, everybody has stupid ciphers that they want back. Right.
Well,
so,
ISA only gets Eschatonic Well one time.
So then you're cycling through a smaller deck, and a smaller deck, and you get to your other exciting stuff faster. Imagine you being able to play Kinetic Accelerator twice in a pulse round in skirmish.
Let's not imagine that.
Yeah, like be complaining about Core Rampager now.
Listen, I will never not complain about Strike Raptors, Cortical Rampager, and Sin. Okay? Those are my Factotums.
Oh, dang! I was literally just about to say, wait, Factotum's made it off the list?
I knew I was forgetting something.
Well,
Factotums are definitely
if
there.
you're adding the Factotum, you gotta add the March World's Engineer as well.
No. The Factotum is overstated as hell, so that's why he makes the list.
Right, but the Engineer has tune-up and can remove continuous effects.
Yeah, but the Engineer's 2 boxes and Def 2 and Speed 5.
Engineers don't live long enough to be able to apply tune-up after turn 1.
Like, just imagine a light jack that may not have the output of light jacks, but just says, hey, that jack over there doesn't have an activation token anymore,
You don't have to tell me
I'm
about
full
Factotums.
health.
You have to tell me effect totems. I have this exact same problems with effect totems that you do. That's the reason why I shot them off the table every chance I got against Sneaky in our most recent game.
Did you happen to get them off most of the time? Because that's my problem. Is I try and get rid of them, and they stick around because they're bastards.
He killed one.
Bottom of one. I got rid of one and locked down the daemon that came out of the gate off Nyx as well.
Yeah, that Entrophier, I've never seen someone do as much work with an Entrophier in skirmish as he did.
It is
really?
the key mechanic to my AC.
I don't know. In our games, does it really come up like that much?
No, that's what I was saying. Normally it doesn't, but he was
even me and Jay, like, he's taken the same list versus me, and I've never really felt like that hemmed in by it. I don't know if maybe I've just been lucky and had the cards I needed at the time I needed them.
No, Justin, it's because you're already used to only playing with 2 models on the table at a time.
That's probably true.
And when you're playing
any different to you.
And when you're playing against me, you get to play with everything because I'm the one that's playing with 3 or 4 models on the table.
That's probably true. That might be really what it is, because I'm telling you what, I haven't felt that locked in by it, but Sneaky's probably right. Whenever I'm playing AC, I only have like 2 models on the table when I'm playing against him or Josh.
I effectively locked down almost his whole army the first pulse round.
Wow. Okay. I really wish you guys would have recorded that game. That game sounds like it was
It was super close. Super close.
And at the start of pulse round 2, it was like 1-3, and he went up to 8 really quickly. And at the end of the pulse round, I got up to 8. So it really, like, I tied it up at the end of pulse round 2, which was really crazy.
That sounds like an awesome game. And then, we'll probably do a Pendulum wrap up episode when that season ends. But I can't wait to hear more about it.
Yeah, that'll probably be our next episode, actually. Maybe before we start the
Probably either that or Ciphers or... Geez, we got so many episodes suddenly.
Lots to talk
about. It's nice to have things to talk about.
Yes!
That's true. That's true. An embarrassment of riches. So the new layouts for each size, what do you guys think? I think, personally, the full size has a lot less variety, except for like some of the ones where they just went bananas on throwing scenarios out there. Because I kept saying decay constant, but with this twist.
I mean, it looks that. Yeah. I feel like the FBF matches, the new primary ones, a lot of them are way more busy now. So like, I like that because I like, being aggressive and things being on top of each other and, fighting it out and stuff. So that's interesting. I hope that Collision Course comes with some extra objective tokens, because I don't know where I'm getting 20mm stuff from. Well, actually I do. I'm getting 4 of the things from the Kickstarter, the little tower Jeans, whatever they were called.
Yeah, I'm gonna end up being 1 short for the 9
Listen,
missions.
Sneaky, I printed about 1 million objective zones. I will give you some.
That's fair. I do need to get some circles from you. But yeah, I picked up 1 from each faction. Just because
I wish I'd done that.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope they're there for other people, because that would be annoying if they aren't.
Yeah, it'd be really cool if they did have like a little punch board in there with like 9 objective tokens.
Yeah.
Or even a +3.
Yeah.
I do like the more spread out skirmish scenarios. I think that's going to change some dynamics. Moon Shadow notwithstanding, because it's super on top of each other. But yeah.
So I'll say that the last batch of full-size missions, some of them are okay, but for the most part, I wasn't really interested in any of them. I didn't really enjoy, when I have played them in the past, I didn't really enjoy them. I'm actually interested and excited to try out the Collision Course primary missions, the full-size missions. The skirmish missions, while I have my issues with 2 of the 3 of them, I think they all add playability and more options to the meta that we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
I'll have to echo a lot of that. I think that the skirmish missions, whereas they didn't do anything bananas or crazy or didn't just wow me with something like, or my jaw hit the table when I looked at them. I think that the spacing and everything is actually probably much more balanced and better for skirmish than what they've previously done. And for full size, like they had some that just like I looked at those and I had to rub my eyes and I had to look at them again and I was like, this is really happening. This is real.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to play some of these because they've gone bananas on at least 2 of those scenarios. And any of them that have more than 6 objectives, I'm just like, what?
Well, they've gone bananas on 3 of them because we have 2 whack-a-moles and a choose your own death scenario.
Yeah.
So, I'm really excited with what they did with the skirmish, just because like they did minor changes that dramatically change how the game plays without it being like
the random events table.
And how you build your list too. I think it also changes how you build your list.
Yeah,
which I think is really interesting. Yeah,
I'm really excited with what they did with those skirmish scenarios, and I'm looking forward to more.
Right.
Like them showing their hand, like this is the kind of stuff we can design. I'm super excited because I never would have thought of any of it. Right.
I thought about the teleporting around the table bit, and I was going to include that in the campaign that I'm sort of starting to work on, but not in the way that they did it.
Yeah,
they've done a lot of really far out stuff with this, and it makes me excited for where they're going next, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is that these missions are getting added to the Pendulum packet, right?
Mm-hmm.
We understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
So these are the missions that they feel are mostly all right for tournament play. Just wait till this next narrative set comes out, and they're like, the shackles are off. All bets are off. We can do whatever we want with these.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe,
technically, Pendulum is supposed to be a curated list, so we'll see what they actually do. It's supposed to be 6 of each, 6 skirmish, 6 primary.
Mm-hmm.
So they can still go a little crazy with stuff, and then just have a couple of like balanced scenarios. Like we were talking about that in the Discord. Like, what 6 would we pick in order to have a balanced scenario list? And like that was easy peasy on skirmish. You just take all 6, and but for primary, it's like
never used to.
Yeah, I mean they thought uncertainty principle was okay in a tournament, so all bets are already off.
So I'm excited.
Looking to Wave 3, and the campaign and the narrative play of Wave 3. I'm really hoping for, and those of you may or may not remember, but if you played Escalation back in the day, or you've read through Escalation back in Mark 1, they had a really involved campaign system with side missions and story-driven and multiplayer. I really want something of that level of depth for this. If they're pushing narrative as hard as they seem to be doing, I'd love to see something with that level of depth that really introduces the story and the interweaving that they've sort of been hinting at in their fluff articles recently.
Yeah, I mean they've. In our interview, at least, they had some big things to say about narrative, so I'm super excited.
I too am excited. Let's go on. We have 2 more points, and then we'll get on to the outro. Pretty much.
Okay.
The escape hatch situation where you're spawning the portable objectives from any inactivation near an escape hatch, and only certain things can hold that portable objective. What do you guys think about that mechanic?
I mean, that's basically straight out of First Contact. So I mean, it's existed for a while. I think that it's in competitive play, it's a risky choice. In narrative play, it's very cool.
Yeah, it's hard to make work well and have the portable objectives actually be relevant to the game. So, I'm not a big fan, but that's because I played Bones of Giants like 5 times, and even though I don't like it,
I'm not enthused with the execution, but I think portable objectives are one of those really untapped resources in Warcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
100%. I think that if they get a mission right using those, it can be one of the best missions, right? They just have to hit that sweet spot where it's, you can interact with it with enough things, where it's, you
I'd love
want
to see
to interact with it,
Yeah,
where
I'd
it's
love to-
actually worth interacting with it, and it's not a detriment to you to interact.
I'd love to see a mission where getting a portable objective gave the model carrying it a bonus. Sort of like some of the scenarios where like they have the kegs that make things go faster or get stumbling drunk, things like that, and some more narrative missions. I think a mission like that would be really interesting.
One thing that concerns
Marvel,
me about that. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say Marvel Crisis Protocol does a great job with portable objectives because there's like some give you bonuses, some give you bonuses and a detriment at the same time. Some give you a detriment, like
what I was thinking, but I didn't want to go to a different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if people are familiar with it, they can relate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
I don't know. I have a love-hate for it. I don't. The problem is there's always going to be somebody salty at the end of the day.
Yep.
That this portable objective gives you stealth, and then the AC players would be like, oh, that's a rule that we have, and now it's everybody gets it, or oh well this lets you make an extra range attack. Well, why did I bring reiteration complex in my deck then? Like there's always going to be somebody that's upset by whatever buff you give them or whatever. So I have mixed feelings about going that route with it.
I'd love to see like plus movement or plus mat or plus rad or
you
could sacrifice it to
hey,
remove an activation.
I've got a monopoly on movement here. What are you doing?
I mean, you could do it. You could do it where you could drink it and get an activation token, but take a wound on a model, or not be able to score the point if you sacrifice it to remove an activation token. There's a bunch of stuff you could do. All of that is narrative and not really competitive.
Yeah, and also like something that they haven't done is they haven't done anything where it's not like a drop off to somewhere thing. So that's what all the portables are. Instead of just like I'll hold on to it.
Yep.
Because then it's just like you're just chasing the portable objective around the whole game, and that could be a super fun like little mini game inside the game while you're also trying to score points.
I think you would need that narrative. What I actually kind of want to see is something where you're trying to attack. You like maybe the portable objective is like a grenade, and you're trying to attack your opponent's objectives.
Yeah, drop off the bomb type scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I think that would be cool. Where they don't. I guess that kind of turns into something like what we already have, where you're bringing it to a point, but you need to secure it.
There were some missions like that in Company Iron.
You're trying to take it to a point your opponent secures.
Yeah, there were some missions like that in Company Iron, which were really fun.
So I don't know. I think there's a lot of space for them to explore with portable objectives, and the escape hatch is not my favorite version of what they've already explored. But I think it's a good step forward, and it's showing us kind of things that they can do. There's what's really amazing about this game is like you don't realize it until they do it, but there's a million little knobs they can turn to make a mechanic amazing or terrible. And we can see them playing with the knobs. Like these guys are, they've got their Etch-a-Sketch going, and that line is just going all over the place. And sometimes they make, I don't even know what that garbage is. And sometimes they got the Mona Lisa on there. So,
I mean,
I'm excited to see where they go.
Year 2, year 1.5 of the game. I mean, it took a long time to get the competitive stuff for War Machine right. And
I mean, technically, we're at less than a year. I mean, it didn't hit
we're like 6 months from everything going retail.
Yeah, we're like 9 months in right now. Like from Kickstarter 1 being delivered.
Well, we were able to start playing a little over a year ago with the playtest rules being released on.
Right.
Yeah.
But once models started hitting people's hands, it was about 9 months. So
I mean, I was playing in person pre-COVID with proxied models. I don't know about you guys, but. I probably got 6 or 8 games in pre-lockdown. So,
yeah.
Okay, so the last mechanic I want to talk about is the minus rat for range and the stealth and concealing terrain. What do you guys think about that mechanic?
I like it just because I talked about it during the scenario. It changes things a lot while only like we just talked about tweaking the knob a little bit. Like it changes up what models are super viable, like lists. The play, it encourages different, certain terrain types. Like I like it a lot.
I like it, but I think it would be better as a thing that is okay. Well, the first pulse round, there's this. Then, like in skirmish, what happens? One thing that drives me insane is in skirmish is the fact that turn 1 is so lethal, right? Is like because my Morningstar can just walk on a point and shoot your Oculus off the board turn 1. It makes a bad play experience when you never had a chance to do anything, and you're having to hide that Oculus in your own deployment zone just to feel like you can actually get to use it. It's a bad player experience. So like but I do like that mechanic because what happens is, hey, you know what? My Oculus can either sit inside this obscuring terrain that I purposely put inside players' deployment zones so that they can not get shot at, but it doesn't hinder their movement.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that. I'm gonna have to change my map now.
But it benefits map makers to like, oh, I don't need to put this box right in front of the deployment zones to protect things. It lets you turn a lot of little knobs. I like some of these rules. I think the implementation is the problem. And maybe the stealth thing can stay the whole map, but maybe it's kind of like a Dawn Raid thing, and it's getting more light out. And so the minus rat goes away after the first pulse round.
Or it goes down to 10 inches instead of 5 inches.
Right. Yeah. So it's and then in the final pulse round, it's completely gone.
Yeah.
Like I think there's knobs that can turn that can make this actually a really cool mechanic from a mechanic that's kind of this is like going to be super annoying to play with most of the game.
As is, I don't like it at all. I really don't. I'm really not a big fan of it. For the reasons I've stated previously. I think with the tweaks and adjustments you're talking about, I think I like it more. If it wasn't all game. But as is, it just basically, I think, for me anyways, it makes me think AC is unplayable.
I mean, I think that AC cares about it less than most factions because most of our ranges are about 10 inches anyways. So most of the time we're going to be getting -1 rat.
Which means most of our stuff is rat too.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm not.
That is true.
Yep.
I didn't think about that. But like, yeah, most of your stuff is going to be not going to be able to shoot at all. You have good melee options though, at least.
We have melee options.
We have melee options. The Scourge is okay. The Scourge is okay. But get shot off the table quickly. I mean, we're not here to talk about AC necessarily. And the melee squad does not hit reliably. If you hit one hit of the 3, even with a red die, you're doing well.
Hey, but then you have the Raker, who is reliable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a model that's reliable.
Don't discount my doggo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're gonna see, like you mentioned, like stuff getting shot off the table. I mean, that's gonna be harder with the -1 rats, and you've got melee scourges, which can hit super hard. The melee nemesis, the high intensity melee nemesis, is super. It's really good. Scythes are disgusting, and the Reavers are fine, and you can put Cankerbane on all of that. So I mean, like,
right.
you have good options for dealing with stuff, but yeah, the super low rats definitely that's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot.
Hey, I just increased the number of rats at my AC. That's all. Anyways, so what are our least?
You know what, Justin? You're the reason they lower the rat on everything. Because
I know.
Your Skaven
amplified it so much.
your Skaven models added too much rat to the AC pool.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Everyone that plays AC, blame Justin.
It's my fault. And then I jumped over to ISA.
Beep, beep, beep.
To be fair, in every pendulum from now on, I'm just gonna play the least played faction. So if you want me to play something, don't pick it because I will pick whatever nobody's playing. But that's my plan.
Welcome to AC.
Listen to this big talk.
One of the most popular factions.
Listen to Justin talking big after he wins a tournament. He's like, I'm gonna play anything.
Listen, I will play it all. I don't even care. Okay, so to wrap up, what is everybody's favorite and least favorite scenario?
With the tweaks that we talked about, the teleporty ones would probably be my favorite. Without those tweaks, from Skirmish, I really like Moonshadow, but I'm gonna have to go with the Cypher Hand one because it's really well balanced and also adds a really cool mechanic at the same time. And for the primary scenarios, for like beer and pretzels, I actually really like the whack-a-mole.
Either whack-a-mole?
No, I actually don't like the first whack-a-mole with the 3 across the center, the necro whatever one. I like that whack-a-mole. And I'll get back to you on which one I like from the tournament perspective because I don't remember.
Well, I know my favorite one in the primary missions. The one I'm most excited to play is First Patrol.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
The one where they're playing around with, different things, being able to score in different pulse rounds. I'm super excited to play that one. I think it just yet again, it's turning those knobs in just the right places to really add a lot of interest to the game. And there's so many little strategic things involved with that. I'm excited. I think that one is going to be super cool. I'm unbelievably excited to play that one. As far as least favorite full size, I don't know. I think that the escape hatch one is probably it for me because I think what kills it for me is that they've tried to do a really cool mechanic that I think is just dead on arrival. And portable objectives, like I say, are one of those things I really want done well at some point. And every time I see them, I just think they're lacking. So, as much as I feel like I could have loved this mission with a little bit of a difference, a little bit of change to it, I want to have to say that I don't care for it in its current iteration. As far as skirmish goes, though, I think we're all probably going to say the same thing for our favorite. The Apotheosis agenda, where the Cypher hand goes crazy, the objectives are far away. It's that perfect sweet spot, like where I get a really cool effect for the game. Like it's a mission that feels different, and it's got its own unique mechanic, but it doesn't like abandon balance, right? It's like, hey, I get to have this cool thing, but I also get to play a competitive game at the same time.
Yeah, and it's end of activation scoring.
Oh yeah, who could forget that? That's like my favorite. Although I will say, as much as Moonshadow might be a weird scenario, I don't think it's my least favorite because it's also end of activation scoring. I think, unfortunately, Unconventional Warfare ends up being my big stinker for skirmish because it's end of pulse round scoring and the lack of that refinement on the teleport mechanic. And also, it's an incomplete scenario. I can't get behind anything that's just that unfinished.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with you for skirmish. I definitely like Apotheosis agenda. I think Unconventional Warfare, once we figure out what the center objective is, and if me personally, I think I'd like to see the teleporters move to 8 inches in like the other 2 scenarios instead of 6 inches. I think that's just a little too limiting. Takes up deployment area, makes it very easy to slam stuff off the table when teleporting.
I think that's intentional, though. I think that's so that you're like, ooh, I don't like it. He may have blocked me off from the front side, but if I come in over here, I see both ways on that one.
I'm not a fan.
I just think the teleporting mechanic needs.
I'm not a fan. So least favorite for primary, I don't like Necropolis Dreaming. I don't like the randomness of where the objectives are going to be active are. I wish that there was more one on one side, one on the other to start at least. My favorite is First Patrol. It's actually the mission I'm most excited to play. It's probably the first one I'm going to build a map for. I think it's really interesting. It's really dynamic, and the stuff we talked about makes it really interesting. I also think that with the stuff we talked about with Cat and Mouse, I didn't like Cat and Mouse very much coming into the discussions, but we talked about doing it like a dividing wall down the center. I think that's the second one I'll probably build a map for, least of the primary missions. And I think that mission could actually be really interesting, at least from a narrative perspective.
Yeah, I'm gonna change my answer from Necropolis to Cat and Mouse from a beer and pretzel standpoint, and then I forgot to say my least favorite, which is whichever one has the squad only end of activation scoring, because I hate that.
Yep,
I hate it.
Yeah, it does force your plays too much.
Mm-hmm.
So did any of you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
Nope. I think we covered pretty much everything, at least from
Oh,
my
I think
perspective.
we beat the hell out of just about
Oh, yeah.
everything.
Sorry, Josh.
I'm gonna be building maps, and I'm excited to play them.
Yep.
That's what I have to add.
Yep. We all are very interested to play all this stuff, and I'm looking forward to your next league. I get to play March Worlds and have a good army, and I don't think AC's bad. I just think that I hit a wall with what I can do with them.
You've
I
also
think they
played
don't
like
have the same tools. Like their
150
toolbox
games
is
with them.
not what other factions have.
yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
you gotta mix it up a little bit. Like after 150 games, like you need something new.
Yep.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about the league, this one is finishing up here in a couple of days, and then on Saturday. So it'll be over by the time this episode's out, and then the next league should be starting up on, I believe, May 9th.
We got to get building missions then.
Yeah, I mean, I've already got one skirmish.
Well,
I'll have by the end of the week, I will have every single skirmish map, probably multiples.
Well, I'm excited for that. I'm gonna sign up on the last day, and I'm just gonna see what faction is least represented, and that's how I'm gonna decide what I'm gonna be.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to be running cat and mouse for the primary because I want to see if it's as problematic as it potentially could be. So.
Oh, one announcement for TTS crowd. I've already given them to Spencer, so they'll probably start showing up his maps. My maps, I'm 24-hour Gaming Geek or Huron BH. Look for them on. I've created a deck that has all of the cipher cards in it, so you'll start seeing them in my mods. You should start seeing them in Spencer's. And anything new that we both build, they'll be in there. So.
Yeah, I already put them in my new map, and then I also took your advice and changed up where the hand thing was.
Yep.
And I think I did something else, but I don't remember what. Oh, my mats! Oh, I'm super excited about this. So I added in a mat on all of my, and you might want to steal this, on all of my mods, where they're all states, and so there's 21 mats, and you can load up whatever scenario you want, except for my 2 boiling point scenarios because they use tiles, and then you can cycle through the mats as a player and pick whatever mat you want.
That's interesting. I'll take a look at it. Is that like built into the table? Because all of my mats are, it's not a board that's locked to the table. It's all, I actually figured out the size of the mat for each of the table sizes that I use, and it's actually the surface of the table is the mat.
Yeah, I could never figure out how to do that, so mine's just an object.
A lot of research on Google.
Yeah, mine's just an object because I couldn't figure that out. But anyways, TTS is exciting. Y'all should come play.
Absolutely.
Definitely do. It's a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of really cool people. And if you're new, if you're brand new to TTS, this crowd is usually super helpful.
Yep.
I know Sneaky usually gives a lot of demo games. I just gave a demo game the other day.
I'm totally willing to do demos.
We're excited and interested in building up the community. I'm sure Jay is probably even cool with doing some demo games.
Yep. There's
hit any of us up.
Yeah, real quick. There's a video on SX Wargames YouTube channel. It's from the first playtest, but it talks about playing Warcaster and TTS and how to play Warcaster at the same time. I'll be doing some new videos here in the very near future that'll show up on my Twitch and on my YouTube, which will be 24-hour Gamer Geek, that will also cover some of the newer rules and explanations and stuff for that as well.
Yeah, and Ryan did a whole series on Studio M as well for using TPS and playing Warcaster.
Yeah, and if you're new to Warcaster in general, I don't know how you sat through all this, but I think even War Budgies has a learn to play Warcaster in 5 minutes. So like, the tools are out there to help you and get you into the game. So, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Yep.
So, thank you for coming out, Jay, and talking through these scenarios with us and bringing up points that I probably wouldn't even thought of. And thank you everybody out there for listening. Come to the Discord. The Warcaster Discord is a really fun place for everybody. It's probably the easiest place to get a hold of anybody and set up TTS games. And the Warcaster Facebook is a great place for questions and just showing off your models and doing different things. I keep saying we're going to start doing Twitch streaming again, and I just fail at it every time. So I'm not promising it, but I want to do it. So
I will be in the very near future.
See, he's got the promises now. Anyways, thank you everybody for listening, and you have a great one. Bye.
Sorry, Josh.
thank you for listening. This podcast is brought to you by SX Wargames. Now, if y'all enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe. Now, for more content, you can check out the Through the Void Gate blog, or join us on the SX Wargames Facebook, Discord, and YouTube. Stay safe and roll super strikes.